Chapter 186. If the intruder who just rescued the ice ninja was Shinichi Uchiha, then there is no need for the Uchiha clan to continue to contact the Kumo envoys. Thinking of this, Fuyue quickly said to the three generations, "Naruto-sama, please allow our police force to join the hunt." Since they are already here, the three generations naturally have no reason to refuse, so they smiled and said, "Very well, we are now short of manpower." After saying that, the three generations no longer said anything and immediately chased in the direction where Hyojin and Jishuei broke out of the encirclement. Mai's Umbu and Uchiha's police force did not say a word and silently followed. The Kumo Jonin pondered for a moment and finally decided to follow and take a look on Hyojin's side. Jishuei followed Hyojin and asked, "Senpai, how did you use ice release?" In theory, ordinary ninjas also have a certain probability of mastering the combination of water attribute chakra and wind attribute chakra, thus comprehending the ice release kekii, but this probability is too low to the point that it is almost impossible. Let's talk about this later. After a pause, Hyojin asked, "Since you know that the three generations are chasing after us, why are you still so late? If you don't show up, I will be in trouble." Jishuei said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I didn't expect Naruto-sama to participate in the hunt personally." Not to mention Jishuei, even Hyojin ignored this point, but if you think about it carefully, it is reasonable for the three generations to participate in the hunt personally. The Kumo envoys just signed the peace agreement and now something happened. If Sandaime-sama doesn't take this seriously, even if the attacker has nothing to do with Konoha, Kumo may still use this as a pretext, so Sandaime-sama must act personally. Hyojin shook his head and said, "Forget it, I didn't think it through." Recalling the scene just now, Jishuei was a little worried and said, "Senpai, will I be discovered by Naruto-sama just now?" Kuroto curled his lips and said, "How could it be so easy to suspect you? At most, they will suspect that the Uchiha clan is colluding with outsiders. Don't worry about it." Jishuei suddenly said, "Senpai, you really don't know how to comfort people." Glancing at Jishuei, Hyojin said lightly, "Senpai, you can't see clearly." Jishuei was a little confused. "What do you mean by that? Do you think that Hokage-sama doesn't have any evidence that the Uchiha clan wants to rebel? With the arrogance of your people, you and senpai and you senpai I and Yudosei, I su I uo I clan you and said, Jishuei. Hearing this, Jishuei suddenly fell into silence. Hyojin continued, "The clan meetings of the Uchiha clan are becoming more and more frequent recently, and in secret, they are also purchasing a large number of detonation talismans and various weapons. Not to mention the high level of the village, even the Hyuga clan has heard about this." Jishuei was even more speechless. Hyojin asked with a puzzled look, "I have always had a doubt, rebellion is such a serious matter, why did the Uchiha clan do it so crudely? You didn't even do anything, but you already told everyone your intentions. It would be strange if you succeeded like this." This doubt had always puzzled Kuroto, no matter how he thought about it. In the original story, the Uchiha clan was also indecisive. They clearly showed the intention to rebel, but they hesitated and refused to take action, so the Uchiha clan was moved to a corner by the Konoha clan, and even the Uchiha clan built high-rise buildings around the clan land to monitor them from time to time, but they still didn't wake up. In the end, the Uchiha clan, known as the most powerful clan in Konoha, wasn't even able to cause a ripple and was annihilated. In Kuroto's opinion, the Uchiha clan must not reveal the slightest intention of rebellion before they are ready. When it's time to make a move, it's time to strike decisively. The Uchiha clan has made almost all the mistakes they shouldn't have made, so it's not a shame that they lost," Jishuei said faintly. In fact, there were still many people in the clan who opposed the rebellion, but Shinichi's successful defection made everyone have thoughts that they shouldn't have, so the situation got out of hand. Uchiha Shinichi, who had just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan, easily broke through the base of the root, which was regarded as a great enemy by the Uchiha clan. Not only that, Uchiha Shinichi also calmly got rid of the heavy pursuit of the village and killed the Umbu who were chasing him. Uchiha Shinichi's actions in this time made the Uchiha clan deeply feel the weakness of the village. The village is far from being as strong as we thought, we have a great advantage. This sentence has become the most commonly heard sentence in the recent Uchiha clan meetings. In the past, there were only some radicals in the Uchiha clan who were unwilling to be excluded from the power of the village and wanted to take a risk by means of rebellion. After the defection of Shinichi, almost all the people in the Uchiha clan became radicals, because they suddenly found that rebellion is really possible, and the chance of success seems to be not small. Hyojin said jokingly, "So you are inquiring about the whereabouts of Uchiha Shinichi and want to recall him back to the clan?" Jishui nodded helplessly. "The clan does have such a plan." Kuroto chuckled lightly and said, "Your patriarch's thoughts are quite beautiful. 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan can sweep the entire village, but with his indecisive temperament, he really can't do the work of rebellion." 3 pairs? Jishui was startled at first, and then immediately said in surprise, "You mean, the patriarch he also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan?" Hyojin nodded and said, "If I didn't guess wrong, he should have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan a long time ago, but at that time the 4 generations Naruto was still in the village, and Orochimaru hadn't defected. He was alone and didn't dare to show it. At that time, the situation Fuyua faced was that the 4 generations were all in the village, only Tsunade had run away, Orochimaru and Jiraiya were both in the village, and the 3 generations Naruto and Danzo were also in the village, so he had to hide his Manjikyu Sharingan. But now the situation is that the 4 generations are dead, Orochimaru defected, Jiraiya is stationed in the front line, and only the 3 generations and Danzo are left in the village. On the contrary, the Uchiha clan now has 2 more rookies who have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and the comparison of strength between the 2 sides has immediately changed dramatically. Jishui was a little lost at this time. The rebellion of the clan seems to be in front of his eyes. Coming back to his senses, he quickly asked Hyojin, "Kuroto-san, is there any way to stop all this from happening?" Hyojin smiled strangely and took out a storage scroll from the ninja bag on his waist, then took out a black cloak and a mask covered with flame patterns from the storage scroll. Handing the cloak and mask to Jishui, Hyojin said, "Put it on, from now on, you are a member of Amatsukami, codename Homasubi." Jishui took the cloak and mask and murmured, "Amatsukami?" At this time, Hyojin stopped smiling and said solemnly, "Yes, this is the way to save your Uchiha clan." Chapter 187. Holding the flame mask in his hand, Jishui asked doubtfully, "Is this the way to save Uchiha?" Hyojin said slowly, "Now that the situation has developed to this point, it is impossible to resolve the conflict between Uchiha and the village. Since there is no way to resolve it, then we have to change our way of thinking, try to maintain the situation as much as possible, delay the outbreak of the conflict, and wait for the situation in the village to change in the future." Jishui put on the cloak handed to him by Hyojin and asked, "But how do we delay it?" Kuroto pointed at his mask and said, "Let's find them a common enemy." Looking at the mask in his hand, Jishui asked doubtfully, "You mean Amatsukami?" Hyojin said, "My mask represents the sway gene of Amatsukami. If I use the identity of a bounty ninja and bring Watanabe's body to the black market to exchange for the bounty, what do you think the village's higher-ups will do to me?" Jishui replied without hesitation, "If you really exchange Watanabe's body for the bounty, then Armai will lose a lot of face. I'm afraid that Naruto-sama will send the Umbu to hunt you down. Yes, the village may even put a high bounty on my head in the black market." After a pause, Hyojin smiled and said, "In this way, Amatsukami will completely offend the village's higher-ups." Jishui asked, "And then?" Hyojin looked straight at Jishui. It's not enough to just offend the village's higher-ups, next we have to deal with Uchiha and eliminate the radical faction in the Uchiha clan. What? Jishui was shocked, looked at Hyojin with a look of disbelief. You want me to kill my clansmen? Hyojin said coldly, How long are you going to run away? Jishui opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She could only lower her head. Using force to stop the family's rebellion was a taboo in Shirsue's heart. If that day really came, he wouldn't hesitate to do it. But before that day came, he didn't even want to think about it, let alone plan anything. But Hyojin's words pointed to the taboo in his heart, and he had no choice but to face it. Looking at Homasubi, who was dodging Homasubi's gaze, Homasubi said, It's time to make up your mind, otherwise, what awaits the Uchiha clan is the destruction of the old and the young. Jishui roared, Naruto-sama would never do that. It's true that the 3 generations wouldn't act rashly. After a pause, Hyojin continued, but once we choose to act, the 3 generations will definitely not be merciful. If the entire clan rebelled, no matter which shinobi village it is, they won't be merciful. In the Mist Rebellion not long ago, the Snow Clan, Kagaya Clan, and other clans that participated in the rebellion were completely annihilated by the Mist Village, and their bloodline was almost severed. Jishui knows very well that Uchiha's rebellion will never succeed, because even with 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, Uchiha is not a match for Hyojin alone. Obviously, the last time Hyojin relied on the giant Tenseigan chakra on the moon and entered the Tenseigan chakra mode to sweep away everything left a deep impression on Jishui. It can be said that Jishui is the only person who has witnessed Hyojin's strongest state. Therefore, compared to the annihilation of the entire clan, old and young, killing only a few radicals is much easier for Jishui to accept. After hesitating for a moment, Jishui asked, Then how many clansmen do I have to kill? Hyojin said, Kill until the entire Uchiha clan points their spear at Amatsukami. Hyojin's idea is very simple, that is, to slap the mouths of the Konoha clan and Uchiha shinobi, ridicule them, and attract all the resentment of both sides to Amatsukami. In any case, the so-called Amatsukami is just a shell organization that Hyojin casually made up to attract hatred. Jishui held her head in distress. But I can't do it, how can I do it to my own clansmen? It's not Uchiha Jishui who did it, it's Homasubi of Amatsukami. Changing the topic, Hyojin said with a smile, If you can't do it, then let me deal with them. Every member of the Uchiha clan who has awakened the 3 Magatama Sharingan is an excellent test subject. The most extreme and radical group of people in the Uchiha clan are almost all the possessors of the 3 Magatama Sharingan. After all, if they don't have strong strength, they can't be considered radicals. These radicals are harmful to both the village and the Uchiha clan, therefore, Hyojin doesn't feel the slightest psychological burden to carry out human experiments on them. Jishui thought for a long time and asked, Can this method really delay the Uchiha rebellion? Hyojin nodded, yes. This method has been verified in the past. In the original story, the Akatsuki organization pushed the 5 great shinobi villages together to form an unprecedented shinobi alliance. After getting an affirmative answer from Hyojin, Jishui restrained the hesitation on her face and put on the Homasubi mask. Seeing Jishui put on the Homasubi mask, Hyojin smiled. Let's go to the black market gold exchange first. Jishui nodded. While flying, Hyojin seemed to think of something and said, When we attack the radicals of your clan, we should first choose the 2 brothers who belong to the radical faction. Jishui asked, Why? Hyojin thought for a moment and didn't explain to Jishui, just said casually, If we kill a pair of brothers at once, the impact of this matter should be greater. Hyojin's real purpose is naturally to experiment on the 2 brothers who possess the 3 Magatama Sharingan, to see if they can awaken 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, and then create a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. But the probability is too low, so he didn't bother to explain it to Jishui. But after having this idea, Kuroda felt that this experiment is still very worth a try. Looking at the history of the Uchiha clan for thousands of years, it seems that only Madara and Uchiha Sasuke have eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. In terms of probability, among the countless Uchiha clansmen in the past 1,000 years, only 2 people have evolved eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. This probability is indeed frighteningly low. But it is worth noting that when Itachi learned the method to evolve eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he completely guided his younger brother Uchiha Sasuke step by step, and finally evolved eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. It can be said that the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan of Uchiha Sasuke was artificially created by Itachi Uchiha. In other words, after knowing the correct method, artificially creating eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is not as difficult as imagined. Chapter 188. Rushing all the way, Hyojin and Jishui soon arrived at a black market gold exchange center. This gold exchange center is a large stone building located on a deserted pier. The pier looks very dilapidated, and there are only a few wooden fishing boats on the shore. It seems that the pier has been abandoned for a long time. Standing at the entrance of the gold exchange center, Jishui hesitantly asked, "Kuroda-san, do you really want to exchange Watanabe's body for bounty money? Wouldn't it be too much to do this?" Hyojin said, "If you want to put on a show, then you have to go all the way." But the thought of exchanging the body of the person he is responsible for protecting in the black market for bounty money made Jishui, who has never done this kind of thing before, feel a little uneasy. Hyojin glanced at Jishui and said, "Hey, don't tell me you think that I care about the 50 million Ryo bounty?" Jishui quickly waved his hand and said, "Of course not. Why would I care about a trivial 50 million Ryo bounty?" With a light snort, Hyojin continued, "Since we are acting as Amatsukami, then naturally we have to follow the logic of a bounty ninja organization. Think about it, we worked hard to kill Watanabe, but in the end, we didn't exchange his body for the bounty money. If this is found out, who would be suspicious?" Jishui nodded and said, "Well, if the village finds out about this, they will definitely suspect our identity as bounty ninjas." "That's right." Patting Jishui's shoulder, Hyojin smiled and said, "In order to prove our identity as bounty ninjas, we must let Watanabe's body enter the black market. Only in this way, the village will have an excuse to push the blame of Watanabe's death to Amatsukami and Iwagakure, who issued such a high bounty. As for the bounty money, it doesn't really matter. If Watanabe's body doesn't end up in the black market, then Kumo village will inevitably suspect that this attack was directed by Mai himself, and the village won't be able to shift the blame. And once Watanabe's body does flow into the black market, proving that another force was involved in the attack, although the village will still have to bear the responsibility for the lack of protection, the main responsibility can be pushed to the bounty ninjas and the rock village that issued the high bounty behind the scenes." Jishui shook his head and said, "Senior, I think I'd better not go in." Hyojin did not mind. "Alright, you stay outside. I'll come out as soon as I'm done with the corpses." On a small boat not far from the gold exchange, Sasori glanced at Kakuzu, who placed the corpse at his feet, and his handsome eyebrows slightly wrinkled. "Can't you put the corpse into the scroll? It's going to stink." Kakuzu replied in a muffled voice, "We'll be there soon. After I've dealt with Orochimaru, I'll definitely change my partner." Sasori snorted and turned his head to the side. For Kakuzu, who has no artistic cells and doesn't understand the art of embalming, the more Sasori looked at him, the more he felt uncomfortable. In Sasori's eyes, any corpse is a puppet material. Watching a corpse in front of him gradually rotting and stinking, he felt like 100 claws were scratching his heart. Kakuzu didn't care about Sasori's complaints and just flipped through the bounty book in his hand. Suddenly, Sasori, who was sitting on the bow of the boat, stood up and looked at Kakuzu in the distance. His eyes overflowed with a cold, killing intent. Kakuzu followed Sasori's gaze and found a strange figure wearing a black cloak and a flame-pattern mask standing at the entrance of the gold exchange, not far away. Inside the gold exchange, Hyojin took Watanabe's corpse out of the storage scroll and placed it on the autopsy table in the gold exchange. It turned out to be Shuguru-sama. What did you get this time? The owner of the gold exchange greeted Kakuzu with a smile. Ever since Hyojin fought with Kakuzu and the others, the name of Amatsukami has gradually spread in the black market through Kakuzu. Everyone in the black market knows that Amatsukami is not to be trifled with. Hyojin curled his lips and said, "See for yourself." The owner of the gold exchange didn't dare to disobey Hyojin and quickly took out the bounty book, then looked at the corpse on the autopsy table. With just a glance, the owner of the gold exchange was stunned. This is the leader of Kumo's envoy to my Watanabe? Even in the black market, a bounty of 50 million wasn't a common sight. Therefore, almost every gold exchange center's boss knew someone like Watanabe by heart. Hyojin said lightly, "Yes, in order to get this bounty, I fought with Mise Naruto. Hey, I almost lost my life." You are really, the owner of the gold exchange wanted to say that he had no scruples, but on second thought, the person in front of him was a fierce person who dared to kill and set fire to my village, the head of the 5 great ninja villages, so halfway through the sentence, he was speechless. Hyojin urged, "Check quickly, pay quickly." The owner of the gold exchange didn't dare to delay, quickly checked Watanabe's body according to the information on the bounty book. After a moment, the owner of the gold exchange carefully said, "Shuguru-sama, according to the rules, the black market has to take a 10% commission. This bounty is a total of 50 million, the black market will take 5 million, you see," Hyojin said. "Cut the crap, pay quickly." Okay, seeing that Hyojin didn't intend to break the rules, the owner of the gold exchange let out a long sigh of relief. Although there are all kinds of rules in the black market, in the face of a real strong person, sometimes the rules don't count. Not long after, the owner of the gold exchange came out with a box. Hyojin took the box and said coldly, "In the bounty last time, many of the banknotes were broken, it won't be this time, right?" The owner of the gold exchange quickly said, "There will be no problem, you can count it here." Hyojin activated Byakugan and carefully scanned the box. He found that the banknotes were indeed intact this time, so he was ready to leave with the box. At this moment, he suddenly sensed that 2 huge chakra had arrived outside the gold exchange. At the entrance of the gold exchange, seeing 2 ninjas in red cloud clothes coming over aggressively, Jishui was confused and asked, "Who are you?" Sasori sneered, "Aren't you Shuguru-sama?" Although Jishui didn't know about the grudge between Amatsukami and Akatsuki, the hostility from the two was too obvious, so he was secretly on guard and said, "What do you want?" Looking at the flame mask on Jishui's face, Kakuzu said in a deep voice, "Humph, are they other members of Amatsukami? They don't look that strong." At this time, Hyojin walked out of the gold exchange, but his eyes didn't stop on Sasori and Kakuzu. Instead, he looked past them and looked at the forest in the distance. Over there, a large group of my ninjas led by 3 generations Naruto was rushing toward the gold exchange. Chapter 189. In the Byakugan's field of vision, Hyojin found that 3 generations Naruto was surrounded by a large group of Uchiha clansmen, even the Uchiha patriarch Uchiha Fuwa was among them. Tisk, curling his lips, Hyojin put the big box of money on the ground in front of Sasori and Kakuzu, then took out a storage scroll from the ninja bag on his waist. Kakuzu glanced at the box of money that Hyojin used, and according to the size of the box, silently calculated the amount of money inside, and immediately said, "It seems that you have just made a big deal." Unlike Kakuzu, who stared at the box of money, Sasori's attention was completely focused on Hyojin's right arm. "Hey, what's going on? Didn't I destroy his right arm? Could it be that he installed a puppet arm?" In the previous battle, Sasori used the ice puppet's ice-binding coffin to tear off Hyojin Clone A's right arm, so seeing Hyojin's right arm intact at this time, he was shocked. Hyojin spread out the scroll and placed the box of money on top of it, and said with a smile, "Everyone, it seems that I will have to trouble you this time." Sasori frowned. "What do you mean by this?" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Sasori's voice fell, a group of figures rushed out from the woods not far away. The person in the lead is the My Three Generations Naruto holding the golden staff, followed by the Uchiha Patriarch Uchiha Fuyue, as well as a large number of My Umbu and police forces. Both Sasori and Kakuzu were taken aback and immediately put on a vigilant posture. The Three Generations Naruto is the person who led Mai to win 3 shinobi wars, and his reputation is better than the Kage of other major shinobi villages, and he can be regarded as the top figure in the shinobi world today. Therefore, even if Sasori and Kakuzu are lawless and rebellious, when they saw the Three Generations Naruto, they inevitably showed an expression as if they were facing a great enemy. Seal. Bang! In a burst of white smoke, the money box was sealed by Hyojin in the scroll. After putting away the scroll, Hyojin smiled at the Three Generations and said, "Naruto-sama, the 4 of us are the top experts in the Bounty Ninja Circle. I advise you to reconsider, don't act rashly." At this time, the Three Generations glanced at Kakuzu, who was carrying a corpse on his back, and looked at Sasori next to Kakuzu, traitorous ninja of Takanobi Village, Sasori of Red Sand, traitorous ninja of Sand Crypsis Village. Kakuzu has been in the black market for a long time, and his information is not difficult to collect for a great shinobi village like Mai, and Sasori is a famous expert of Sand Crypsis Village, so the Three Generations quickly recognized the 2 of them. On the side, Uchiha Fuyue fixed his eyes on Jishue, who was wearing a flame mask. Being stared at by the patriarch like this, Jishue became more and more guilty, and his heart almost jumped out of his throat. He did not expect that not only the Three Generations but also the police force of Uchiha also caught up. Sasori and Kakuzu are not idiots, and after a little thought, they roughly guessed the whole story. While marveling at the ability of Amatsukami, they also secretly planned their escape route. At this time, Hyojin continued, "I'm afraid that I might scare you, but the guy next to me with a corpse on his back is one of the top experts in Akatsuki. He once assassinated Hashirama Mai, and the red-haired guy next to him is the #1 expert of Sand Crypsis. According to the grapevine, the Kazekage of 3 generations of Sand Crypsis was killed by him." What? After listening to Hyojin's words, the Mai Umbu and Uchiha police force exclaimed. As the elite ninjas of Mai, they have more or less heard the names of Kakuzu and Sasori, but Kakuzu once assassinated Hashirama Naruto, and Sasori killed 3 generations of Kazekage. This is the first time they heard such big news. Not to mention the ordinary Umbu and police force, even the 3 generations of Naruto were secretly surprised after listening to Hyojin's words. The mysterious disappearance of 3 generations of Kazekage has always been a mystery in the shinobi world, and this incident eventually triggered a series of chain reactions, and can even be said to be one of the fuses of the Third Shinobi World War. Fuyue also moved his eyes to Sasori and Kakuzu, and began to pay attention to these 2 traitorous ninjas wearing red cloud suits. At this time, Hyojin lightly patted his head and said with a look of annoyance, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that your Mai and Sand Crypsis are now allies, I let it slip. Due to the pressure from Cloud Village, Mai and Sand Crypsis have officially become allies. Therefore, 3 generations of Naruto saw the murderer of 3 generations of Kazekage, and if he doesn't seek justice for the alliance, then it will be difficult to deal with Sand Crypsis in the future." Every time Hyojin said a sentence, Sasori and Kakuzu's face became gloomier. When Hyojin mentioned that Kakuzu assassinated Hashirama Naruto, and Sasori killed 3 generations of Kazekage, the 2 were surprised and suspicious. They naturally understood that Hyojin was plotting against them, but they couldn't understand how Hyojin knew about their secrets. 3 generations of Naruto made up their minds. One was a traitorous ninja, who assassinated Hashirama Naruto, and the other was a traitorous ninja, who killed 3 generations of Kazekage. Since they met, 3 generations of Naruto naturally can't turn a blind eye, so 3 generations of Naruto shouted, "Don't let a single one of them go." With 3 generations of Naruto's order, the battle was about to begin. Seeing that his goal has been achieved, Hyojin's figure flashed and came to Jishui's side and said in a low voice, "Let's go." In an instant, Hyojin and Jishui broke out of the encirclement. Fuyue's attention was always on Jishui. He thought that the person under the flame mask was Shinichi Uchiha, so as soon as Hyojin and Jishui broke out of the encirclement, he led the Uchiha police force to chase after them. Seeing that Fuyue had his eyes on Hyojin and Jishui, 3 generations of Naruto pondered for a moment, then led the Umbu to rush towards Sasori and Kakuzu. Sasori and Kakuzu didn't even think about it, they turned around and fled. Kakuzu even threw the corpse on his back to the side. Jishui, who was breaking out of the encirclement, looked back at Fuyue who was chasing after them, and complained in his heart. He asked Hyojin, "Senpai, what should we do next?" Hyojin noticed that 3 generations of Naruto and Kakuzu were attracted by Sasori and Kakuzu. He was delighted and replied, "Don't worry, this time we can use the name of Amatsukami to meet the Uchiha police force." Although he had made up his mind to attack his people, Jishui didn't expect that this moment would come so soon. Not long after, the battle circle that was divided into 2 groups was gradually pulled apart. Hyojin's side had gone deep into a dense forest, while Sasori and Kakuzu fled downstream along the river. Seeing that 3 generations of Naruto had gone far away, Hyojin immediately said to Jishui, "Do it!" After saying that, Hyojin immediately turned around, quickly formed a seal, and shouted, "Water release! Great waterfall technique!" Jishui's figure flashed, stepping on the waves of the great waterfall, and directly rushed towards the Uchiha patriarch Uchiha Fu. Chapter 190. Clang, an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing resounded in the forest. Jishui jumped back and landed on a big tree. From the corner of his eyes, he noticed that the kunai in his hand was missing a large piece, and the crack even extended to the handle. Jishui looked at the short sword in Fuyue's hand, and he knew that the sword in the patriarch's hand must be a treasure sword. Fuyue on the opposite side held the short sword, and his eyes slowly turned scarlet. In the short confrontation just now, neither Jishui nor Fuyue had the upper hand. Because of the bloodline of the Uchiha clan, all the people who have awakened the Sharingan are masters of taijutsu, and they are good at almost all kinds of weapons and ninja tools. At this time, Hyojin pressed his palms on the still flowing water and shouted, "Ice release! Ice flower!" In an instant, under the effect of the ice release ninjutsu, the waterfall created by Hyojin's great waterfall technique instantly froze into an ice waterfall, turning the entire forest into a cold ice field. Hyojin can actually create such an effect by directly using the ice release ninjutsu, but he found that using the water release to create a large amount of water, and then using the ice release to condense the water consumes much less chakra than directly using the ice release, so the great waterfall technique almost became his starting move. The people of the Uchiha clan who jumped away fell on the ice, looking at such a huge ice waterfall. Not only did they not feel afraid, but their fighting spirit was even stronger. "Patriarch, you don't have to do anything, let us deal with it." "Yes, it's just 2 bounty ninjas. 3 generations are really old, they can't even deal with these 2 guys." These heavily armed elites of the Uchiha police force, either with one hand on the waist or both hands on the chest, all of them looked arrogant and talked as if there was no one else around. Fuyue, the leader of the Uchiha tribe, who was holding a short knife, frowned. From the tentative exchange just now, Kuroda could clearly feel that the guy wearing the flame mask opposite to him has some traces of Uchiha Taijutsu in terms of taijutsu. Although the other party tried his best to hide it, the experienced Fuyue still saw through it. Listening to the unbridled mockery and ridicule from the elites of the Uchiha police force, Hyojin smiled coldly. Immediately, he said to Jishue beside him, "Homasubi, there are so many pairs of Sharingan. If we cut them off one by one, how much money can we sell them for? We've made a killing this time." Since Kuroda wants to deal with the Uchiha clan in the name of Amatsukami in the future, he naturally has to find a plausible reason, and the Sharingan is undoubtedly the best one. Jishue knows that Hyojin said this deliberately, but he still felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, so he nodded in embarrassment. The faces of the elites of the Uchiha clan changed when they heard this, and all of them were filled with killing intent. Courting death. You two dregs dare to covet our Uchiha clan's Sharingan, it's really ridiculous. Just kill him. I don't think the Hokage-sama will say anything about it. Fuyue ignored the clamor of the clansmen, stepped forward, looked directly at Jishue and asked, "Who the hell are you?" Hyojin replied, "I am Suijin of Amatsukami, and he is Homasubi. As for what Amatsukami does, don't you already know? We are bounty ninjas. As long as there is money, we will do anything." After pondering for a while, Fuyue asked Jishue, "Are you Shinichi?" Jishue thought that Fuyue had seen through his identity, so he kept staring at him, but when he heard this, he realized something and said, "Patriarch, you mistook me for Shinichi." Hyojin said, "I'm afraid you have mistaken me for someone else. There is no guy named Shinichi in our organization." The members of the Uchiha clan couldn't help but say, "Patriarch, since it's not Shinichi, then let us do it. These two bastards dare to humiliate our noble Uchiha clan, we must not forgive them." Fuyue's eyes turned cold, and he nodded silently. In an instant, the elites of the Uchiha police force made their move. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Fire release. Dragon fire technique. Fire release. Impatience flower technique. The three elites of the Uchiha clan were divided into three groups. The middle group used Great Fireball technique, the left group used Dragon Fire technique, and the right group used Impatience Flower technique. Three kinds of powerful fire release ninjutsu were released in an instant, illuminating the night sky red. Hyojin did not dare to be careless, and immediately made a hand seal, water release, water formation wall. A wall of water gushed out and instantly rose from the ground in front of Suijin and Homasubi, protecting the two of them behind it. Boom boom boom. The three kinds of fire release ninjutsu hit the wall of water from different directions, making a low roar. Immediately after that, the poochie poochie sound of water and fire intersecting resounded in everyone's ears. A dense mist spread out in all directions. In the thick mist, Hyojin whispered, "Be careful, they are coming." Jishue nodded. He knew better than anyone that none of his people were easy to deal with. Swish, a kunai pierced through the mist with a whistling sound and shot towards Suijin. Hyojin did not dodge. He caught the flying kunai with one hand, and turned around and kicked horizontally. Almost at the same moment Kuroda kicked, a figure penetrated the thick fog and pounced on him. The figure just happened to hit his horizontal kick and was sent flying by him. At this time, a red light suddenly flashed in the air. Without the need for Byakugan, Hyojin judged from the blurred light that someone jumped to the sky and was using fire release ninjutsu from above, so he dodged to the right. Jishue on the side flashed to the other direction. At this point, Hyojin and Jishue were forced to separate in the mist. Not far away, Fuyue stood on a tree with his hands crossed in front of his chest. The constantly spreading mist also affected his vision, and from the sound of metal clashing, fists and feet colliding, as well as the whistling of fire release ninjutsu, Kuroda can judge that the battle on the field is very fierce. It seems that I have underestimated these two bounty ninjas. This time, Fuyue temporarily gathered the elite police force of 17 people. Each of them was a Jonin-level master, and with the absolute advantage of 17 people besieging the other two, the battle was actually a stalemate. This result was indeed a little beyond his expectations. In the thick mist, I don't believe that 2 bounty ninjas can defeat the elite Uchiha with the Sharingan. Fuyue snorted with a serious face. Such a battle situation was indeed a little unexpected, but Fuyue was not worried, because in the thick mist, the pupil Kekai ninja had an absolute advantage. Even the mist assassins who were good at fighting in the thick mist couldn't gain any advantage in front of the elite Uchiha. Chapter 191. After being forced to separate from Jishue, Hyojin, who was besieged by so many people, could not care about Jishue for a moment. After ducking and avoiding a side kick from an Uchiha, Hyojin turned around and straightened his body. His left hand held onto the ribs of this Uchiha, his right leg pressed against his left knee, his right fist turned into a palm, and his palm went straight for his throat. Whoosh! At this time, a kunai was shot at Hyojin from a very tricky angle, forcing Hyojin to give up his attack and lean back to dodge. Hyojin had just leaned back, but from the corner of his eye, he saw that there was a steel wire tied to the handle of the kunai. Immediately after, the steel wire was pulled back violently, entangling the elite Uchiha that Hyojin had just restrained and pulling him out of Hyojin's attack range, hiding in the thick fog. Tisk! After spitting lightly, Hyojin quickly formed a seal. Ice release, magic mirror ice crystal. Following a series of clattering noises, crystal clear ice mirrors appeared on the battlefield one after another. This time, Hyojin used the traditional method of magic mirror ice crystal, so the ice mirrors formed a hemispherical shape, covering the entire battlefield. Every ice mirror was an extension of Hyojin's senses. Therefore, in just a few short breaths, he had grasped the whole picture of the battlefield, and the effect was not much worse than his white eye. On the battlefield, Jishue was in a bit of a mess. There was no doubt that he still could not cross the threshold in his heart, so when he fought with his clansmen, he was restrained and only used 30% to 40% of his strength at most. In this regard, Shinichi was much better than Jishue. At least Shinichi would not suppress himself like Jishue. But then again, if Jishue, who had the Tianshin, was really an ambitious and merciless person, then Hyojin would probably not dare to deal with him. The appearance of the magic mirror ice crystal immediately attracted the attention of the Uchiha elite. One of the Uchiha elites who had seen the magic mirror ice crystal before shouted, "Everyone be careful, this ice escape is very troublesome." Another Uchiha elite jumped out and shouted, "Watch me use fire escape to destroy these ice mirrors." In an instant, after completing the hand seal, he spat out a mouthful of fierce flames. Boom! The flames struck the ice mirror, but they failed to shatter it. Instead, they scattered in all directions. The reason for this phenomenon was that Hyojin had used the great waterfall technique of the water escape technique and the ice essence of the ice escape technique to create a large ice field that lowered the temperature of the forest by more than 10 degrees. This made the demon mirror ice crystal even more sturdy, and the power of the fire escape was suppressed. Fire escape, dragon fire technique. Wind escape, great breakthrough. After realizing that a simple fire escape could not destroy Hyojin's magic mirror ice crystal, 2 of the Uchiha elites jumped out. One used fire escape and the other used wind escape. The fire borrowed the power of the wind, and the wind increased the power of the fire. Under the amplification of the great breakthrough, the dragon fire technique was like a real fire dragon, fiercely pouncing towards the ice mirrors in the air and smashing one of them. When the Uchiha elites wanted to take the opportunity to escape from the magic mirror ice crystal, Hyojin, who was hiding in the ice mirrors, was not idle. His body was like a ghost, shuttling between the ice mirrors. When he found an opening, he would pounce and instantly knock down one person. This happened a few times, and in just a moment, The Uchiha elites who were trapped in the magic mirror ice crystal were knocked down by Hyojin in this way. And the price that Hyojin paid was only a few scars on his body. At this time, Fuyue, who was standing outside the magic mirror ice crystal, couldn't stay calm anymore. From time to time, the screams of his clansmen came from the magic mirror ice crystal, which made him realize the seriousness of the problem. He suddenly felt that the two bounty ninjas were able to escape from the hands of 3 generations Naruto. Perhaps it wasn't luck. After deciding to make a move, Fuyue's face sank and his hands slowly formed a seal. Fire release. Grand fire annihilation. Boom. A fierce flame fell from the sky and covered Hyojin's magic mirror ice crystal. The raging flame melted the entire top of the magic mirror ice crystal in a moment. Whoosh. A figure passed through the flame and landed firmly in the magic mirror ice crystal. When the Uchiha elites saw Fuyue descending from the sky, they hurriedly supported each other and gathered around Fuyue. All of them were dejected, and their faces were extremely ugly. Glancing at the clansmen, Fuyue said coldly, "All of you retreat, I will deal with them." The Uchiha elites no longer had the arrogance they had before. All of them retreated to the side with red faces. Fuyue looked at Hyojin and Jishue and said in a deep voice, "It seems that I underestimated you, but everything ends here." Kuroto smiled lightly and was just about to respond with a sentence. Suddenly, the surrounding scenery turned black and white, and everything became blurred. Even the magic mirror ice crystal, which was an extension of his perception, blurred into mottled graffiti. Am I under an illusion? After being stunned for a while, Hyojin reacted. To be honest, except for the demonstration of genjutsu by his teacher at the ninja school, Hyojin has never really been under an illusion. In the past, when he was a small fry, no enemy would waste their chakra to cast an illusion on him, because if they really want to deal with him, a kunai or a detonation talisman is enough. But now that he has the Tenseigan, ordinary illusion can't do anything to him at all, so he has never been under an illusion. Hey, I didn't expect to fall for it. This time, Hyojin realized a small weakness of his. That is, when using the Tenseigan Soul Descend technique to control the clone, because he doesn't have the Tenseigan, his resistance to genjutsu will drop to the level of an ordinary Byakugan. However, Hyojin isn't worried. There is still Jishue who also has the Manjikyu Sharingan outside, and Jishue's attainments in genjutsu are no less than Fuyue, so it is unlikely that Fuyue will be able to subdue Jishue instantly with a genjutsu. Therefore, Hyojin looked at the genjutsu scene in front of him with great interest, thinking to himself, could this be Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan technique? Even if he is controlling a clone, Hyojin has a strong resistance to genjutsu, so Fuyue being able to make him fall for it in an instant without him realizing it, it must not be an ordinary genjutsu. At this moment, a trace of purple chakra appeared in the black and white sky. This is, while Hyojin was surprised, the purple chakra gathered more and more, slowly forming a large purple ball with edges and corners. Hyojin frowned. Why does it look so familiar? At this time, the round purple orb turned around and faced one side of the dragon's head towards Suijin. In an instant, the black and white in the surroundings receded like the tide. Chapter 192. As soon as Fuyue's eyes swept past, Hyojin seemed to have lost his consciousness and stood in place. This scene scared Jishue. In Jishue's mind, Hyojin is almost invincible. If there is someone who can deal with Hyojin, then he can only think of Naruto-sama of the 3 generations. Therefore, he didn't expect that Hyojin would fall for Patriarch Fuyue's genjutsu so easily. Almost subconsciously, the 3 Tomo Sharingan under the mask instantly turned into a 4-blade shuriken pattern, activating the kaleidoscope mode. At this time, Fuyue inserted the katana in his hand into the scabbard on his waist and slowly walked towards Jishue while asking in a deep voice, "Tell me honestly, who are you?" Jishue absent-mindedly glanced at Hyojin on the side. Fuyue said coldly. You don't need to look at him, he has fallen into my genjutsu. Looking at the pair of Manjikyu Sharingan in Fuyue's eye sockets, Jishui swallowed his saliva lightly, then he took a step back with a guilty conscience. Fuyue's footsteps didn't stop, still approaching Jishui, and shouted, You don't need to hide, your taijutsu and ninja jutsu are the style of our Uchiha clan, this can't escape my Sharingan. Tell me, who are you? When Fuyue first saw Jishui wearing a flame-patterned mask and a gold-edged black cloak, he felt a faint familiarity. It's just that at that time, he mistakenly thought that the one under the mask was the traitor Uchiha Shinichi, but now he can almost conclude that the one under the mask is not Shinichi, but another familiar Uchiha clan member. When he was watching the battle just now, he has been trying to guess the identity of the other party. But because he knows Jishui's character, he knows that Jishui is the kind of person who would betray the clan rather than the village, so he ruled out his suspicion of Jishui from the beginning. Therefore, after thinking for a long time, he couldn't guess who this faintly familiar Uchiha clan member is. In the face of Fuyue's aggressive questioning, Jishui still remained silent. Fugaka's gaze turned cold. Don't even think about getting lucky. Under my Sharingan, you have nowhere to run. As soon as Fuyue's voice fell, Jishui found that everything around him had turned black and white, and everything gradually became blurred and chaotic, just like a child's scribble. All of a sudden, two huge Manjikyu Sharingan appeared in the sky. The pattern of the Manjikyu Sharingan is exactly the same as the one in Patriarch Fuyue's eye sockets. It looks like a three-edged shuriken, but there is an ink dot between each edge of the shuriken. The black and white continued to invade Jishui's body bit by bit. At this time, a cold voice came from the sky. If you are really Uchiha clan member, then take off the mask yourself, I will give you a chance to explain. Looking at the black and white gradually surging towards her, Jishui changed his tone and asked doubtfully, What kind of genjutsu is this? The cold voice came from the sky again. You don't need to know what kind of genjutsu this is, you only need to know that in this space, everything about you is under my control, you have nowhere to escape. Halfway through the words, the voice in the sky suddenly stopped. Because when the sweeping black and white was about to invade Jishui's body, and dye Jishui's body black and white, countless black crows suddenly flew out of Jishui's body. These black crows flew around Jishui like a protective wall, blocking all the black and white outside. The voice in the sky was no longer indifferent, it was replaced by a shock and anger. How is this possible? Your pupil power is so strong. Who are you? I am Homasubi of Amatsukami. At the thought of the village, for the family, Jishui finally made up his mind. Do you also have Manjikyu Sharingan? After a pause, the voice in the sky suddenly became angry. You are not Shinichi, nor are you Jishui. Why do you have Manjikyu Sharingan? Are you the mastermind who attacked Yondaime-sama and released Kyubi? During the Nine Tails Rebellion, it was not a malicious rumor that the Nine Tails were controlled by the Sharingan, because that night, Fuyue also saw the scarlet Sharingan pattern in the pupils of the Nine Tails. Therefore, Kuroto has always suspected that there is an Uchiha who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan hidden within the family or outside the village. Because only someone who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan can control the Kyubi, and the fact that the other party can control the Kyubi means that the other party must have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. At this time, when he saw that the Homasubi in front of him had pupil power that was comparable to his own Manjikyu Sharingan, he immediately pointed the spear of suspicion at this Homasubi of unknown origin. In anger, Fuyue activated his genjutsu with all his strength. In an instant, the pair of huge Manjikyu Sharingan in the sky slowly rotated, and with the rotation of the huge Manjikyu Sharingan, the black and white in the surroundings immediately became thicker, and everything in the surroundings was erased by the black and white. The entire space, except for the trace of color around Shursui, turned into endless black and white. At the same time, Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan under the mask also slowly rotated, and 2 streams of blood flowed from his eyes, on the river downstream of the gold exchange. Tap tap tap, amidst the sound of people stepping on water, one figure after another flew across the river. While galloping, Sasori turned his head and glanced at the pursuers behind him, as well as the kunai, shuriken, and other ninja tools shot by the pursuers, so his fingers moved slightly, and a puppet in a red robe, either holding a sword or a sword, guarded behind him. Clang clang clang, after a burst of sword light, all the kunai, shuriken, and other ninja tools that were shot at Sasori were all blocked by the red robe puppet. At this time, the corner of Sasori's mouth curled up, and his fingers danced nimbly. The 10 red robe puppets controlled by him suddenly opened their mouths and shot countless sunban at the pursuers behind him. 3 generations Naruto's face darkened when he saw this, and he quickly rotated the Vajra wishful staff in his hand, bouncing off the sunban that was shot at him one by one, and other Mayumbu also used various means, either dodging or using ninjutsu. Plop, suddenly, an umbu who was shot by the sunban fell down and fell into the river. The colleague next to him quickly fished him out and found that his face was black and blue. It was a complete symptom of poisoning. So he took out the antidote and warned loudly, "Everyone be careful, there is a strong poison on Chihan." 3 generations shouted at this time, "The shadow guards stay with me to deal with him, the others go to deal with another target." Yes. The umbu responded one after another, left the team, and chased another target. Kakuzu, who was gradually distancing himself from Sasori, saw a large group of Konoha umbu rushing towards him. He cursed in his heart, and then his figure flickered and went into the dense forest by the river. Chapter 193. In the forest, more than a dozen shadows flickered under the moonlight, and from time to time they would collide with each other, making a few clanging sounds, and then suddenly spread out. Bang! After kicking a Mayumbu, Kakuzu didn't have time to catch his breath, and was targeted by another Mayumbu. Humph! Kakuzu snorted disdainfully, and his figure flashed and jumped on a big tree. The breeze blew slowly, and Kakuzu stood on the top of the tree with a cold expression, wearing a red cloud robe that fluttered with the wind, making a hoochie-hoochie sound. Mayumbu took the opportunity to readjust the formation, and surrounded Kakuzu. Kakuzu looked around, and confirmed that there were 16 Mayumbu besieging him, and his heart sank. This fierce battle was simply a disaster for him. Originally, he was just hunting for a daily target, and suddenly he was chased by 3 generations Naruto with the King Kong wishful staff, and even now, he still hasn't had time to catch his breath. Boom! At this time, there was a roar from the far end of the river. Kakuzu and a group of Mayumbu all looked over, and saw that on the battlefield over there were bursts of cold air and flames were shining. Scorpion has already used the ice release puppet. As a partner in the same group, Kakuzu knew that Scorpion generally wouldn't easily use the puppet, and once he used the puppet, it meant that he was in a fierce battle. And a group of Mayumbu, all of them were worried. Seeing the traces of the ice release on the battlefield by the river, they all thought that the previous powerful Suijin was also there, and couldn't help but worry about 3 generations Naruto. A captain of Mayumbu stood up and said, "Quickly get rid of him, let's go support Naruto-sama." In an instant, a group of Mayumbu launched a fierce attack on Kakuzu. Kakuzu jumped high to avoid a sharp wind release ninjutsu, but before he could land, he was hit by several kunai with a large number of detonation talismans, causing him to be submerged in the explosion. Looking at the sky full of dust, an umbu asked, "Is he dead?" The other umbu nodded. "I saw him being hit by the kunai with my own eyes. At this distance, I'm afraid he has already been blown to pieces by the detonation talisman of the kunai." Just as the 2 umbu members let down their guard, 2 arms pierced through the smoke and flew out. One in each hand, they grabbed their throats, and in the blink of an eye, They were dragged into the smoke. Two blood-curdling screams rang out from the smoke and dust. At this time, the smoke gradually dissipated, and everyone found that the necks of the two umbu in Kakuzu's hands were completely broken. Kakuzu threw the two dead bodies aside and said coldly, "Finding me was your biggest mistake." Sizzle, before Kakuzu's voice fell, a shrill bird cry sounded behind him, and immediately, an arm flashing with lightning pierced his chest from behind. Cough. After coughing out a mouthful of blood, Kakuzu turned his head with difficulty and found that the one who sneak attacked him from behind was a white-haired Myumbu member with a fox mask on his face. This person was none other than the captain of Myumbu Squad 11, Hatake Kakashi. Because of the order of 3 generations, Guy had returned to the village to look for Hyojin and Jishuei, so now only Kakashi was left in the Squad 11. Kakuzu was very surprised by Kakashi's sneak attack because he did not notice it at all, so he turned his head and asked Kakashi, "When did you hide behind me?" Kakashi did not answer, but suddenly pulled out his right arm that was pierced into Kakuzu's chest. As Kakashi pulled out his right arm, Kakuzu's pupils suddenly shrank, a large amount of blood splashed from the hole in his chest, and then his whole body fell straight to the ground. Swish, 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 the scattered Myumbu members gathered one after another, glanced at Kakuzu lying on the ground, and then moved their eyes to the battlefield near the river not far away. His chest was completely pierced. In the eyes of the Myumbu members, this bounty ninja who had assassinated the first generation must be dead, so including Kakashi, no one paid much attention to Kakuzu on the ground, but turned their attention to the 3 generations Naruto. At this moment, a few masked monsters suddenly jumped out of Kakuzu's body lying on the ground, and one of them spat out a ball of lightning from its mouth, instantly wrapping several Myumbu members around it inside Hyojin's magic mirror ice crystal. Seeing the black and white around him quickly fading, Hyojin, who was trapped in Fuyue's illusion space, immediately reacted, and teased the dragon vein floating in the air. "Hey, your reaction is too slow. If it was one-on-one, I would have died by now." The fat dragon turned its head and snorted, as if to express that it had spent a lot of effort to squeeze into this black and white illusory space. Hyojin also knew that the dragon vein was sealed in the gourd magic tool that he carried with him. Although he had opened the seal during the battle, if the dragon vein wanted to help him remove the illusion, it would be more troublesome and time-consuming than the tailed beast that was normally sealed in the human's Jinchuriki. Similarly, everything has its pros and cons. Because the dragon vein was not sealed in Hyojin's body, Hyojin's enemies would not notice it, so they would not cast illusion on it. In this way, the awkward situation of both the human's Jinchuriki and the tailed beast being controlled by the illusion can be avoided. 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura is a perfect Jinchuriki, but under the plot of someone with ulterior motives, it is difficult for him to escape the tragic fate of being controlled by the illusion. Outside the illusion space, the elites of Uchiha were overjoyed when they saw that the River Lord and Homasubi were controlled by the Patriarch's illusion, and then surrounded them. As long as the Patriarch gives the order, they will immediately kill the River Lord and Homasubi who have fallen into the illusion. At this time, Fuyue and Jishuei fell to the ground at the same time, gasping for breath. A group of Uchiha elites immediately gathered around Fuyue and asked, "Patriarch, are you okay?" Fuyue shook his head and didn't speak, but his eyes were fixed on Jishuei opposite him. He didn't expect that the Homasubi in front of him would forcibly break the illusion of his Manjikyu Sharingan. Jishuei was also not feeling well at this moment. Breaking the illusion of Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan consumed a lot of his pupil power. He glanced at Hyojin beside him and thought to himself, "I must first remove the illusion on Senpai." Fuyue naturally understood Jishuei's thoughts and said coldly, "Don't bother. You should know that my illusion is not that easy to remove." Before Fuyue finished speaking, Hyojin carried the heavily panting Jishuei and disappeared. Chapter 194. Suijin suddenly broke the genjutsu and took away Homusubi. This scene made Fuyue, who has always had a straight face, open his mouth wide, showing a look of surprise. If Homusubi, who also has Manjikyu Sharingan, can break the genjutsu of his Manjikyu Sharingan, then it is still within the scope of Fuyue's understanding. Then Suijin, being able to break the genjutsu of his Manjikyu Sharingan, is far beyond his expectations. The elites of Uchiha clan on the side saw this scene and hurriedly tried to catch up. At this time, Fuyue stretched out his hand to stop the group of clansmen and said tiredly, "Don't chase after them." "Patriarch, why don't we chase after them? Are we just going to watch them escape?" The group of Uchiha clan elites looked puzzled and looked at Fuyue one after another. Fuyue gasped lightly and said gloomily, "Homusubi is a clansman of our Uchiha clan, and he also has Manjikyu Sharingan." Hearing Fuyue's words, the clansmen were all startled. One of them tentatively asked, "Patriarch, is he Shinichi?" In the knowledge of these Uchiha clan elites, only Uchiha Shinichi, Uchiha Jishue and Uchiha Fuyue have Manjikyu Sharingan in the Uchiha clan. Jishue's upright temperament is well known by the whole clan, so he was the first to be excluded. Therefore, the only person that the Uchiha clan elites can think of is Shinichi Uchiha, who had recently betrayed the village. Fuyue shook his head and said while gritting his teeth, "He's not Shinichi, nor is he Jishue. If I'm not mistaken, he might be the mastermind behind the Nine Tails Rebellion that caused our tribe to be isolated by the village." "What? It's that bastard! Patriarch, all the more we shouldn't let him go." The elites of Uchiha were enraged when they heard this and started to clamor. Fuyue sighed lightly. "He can break my Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique, so his pupillary prowess is not any weaker than mine. In a one-on-one fight, I'm not sure if I can defeat him. As for that Suijin, he was actually able to crack my Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique. For a while, I can't figure out his background." In Fuyue's eyes, the threat of the River Lord suddenly increased by a large amount. This is not because River Lord has Ice Release Kekkei Genkai, but because River Lord can crack his Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique. In Fuyue's view, no Kekkei Genkai is comparable to their Uchiha clan Sharingan. Even the Byakugan Kekkei Genkai is no exception. "Patriarch, what should we do?" After pondering for a while, Fuyue said, "Summon Jishue, let's hunt down Amatsukami." While running, Hyojin and Jishue frequently looked back and found that Fuyue didn't lead the elites of Uchiha clan to chase after them. While they were relieved, they also felt a little strange. Jishue asked, "Kuroto-san, why didn't the Patriarch catch up with us?" After thinking for a while, Hyojin smiled and said, "Maybe we scared him." The genjutsu that Fuyue used on Hyojin and Jishue is obviously his Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu, and Hyojin and Jishue cracked his genjutsu at the same time, so it's not surprising that Fuyue would be afraid. Putting himself in their shoes, if Hyojin encountered two enemies who weren't afraid of his genjutsu, he wouldn't dare to chase after them rashly. It's just that Fuyue obviously didn't expect that Jishue paid a great price in order to crack his Manjikyu Sharingan genjutsu. It can be said that in order to escape, Jishue consumed at least 70% to 80% of his pupil power. After all, Fuyue took the initiative and used the Manjikyu Sharingan genjutsu first, while Jishue fell into the genjutsu and forcibly used her pupil power to crack it. Therefore, in this confrontation of pupil power, Jishue is obviously the one at a disadvantage. And Hyojin, who is controlling the water clone, can't resist Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan genjutsu, so he can only use Ryumyaku's chakra to neutralize the genjutsu. However, it takes a certain amount of time for Ryumyaku to neutralize the genjutsu for Hyojin, and this amount of time is more than enough to determine the outcome of the battle. Therefore, if Fuyue leads the elites of Uchiha to catch up with them at this moment, the consequences will be really hard to predict. Jishue asked curiously, "Kuroto-san, Didn't you fall into the genjutsu just now? Hyojin shook his head and said, Your patriarch's genjutsu is very powerful. I didn't notice it and fell into it, but fortunately, you were outside to help me stall for time so that I could break the genjutsu. Jishui smiled bitterly and sighed with some tiredness. Sure enough, as you said, the patriarch has also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. At this time, Jishui no longer has any hope in her heart. Fuyue deliberately concealed the fact that he has the Manjikyu Sharingan. In Jishui's understanding, it can be seen as either Fuyue's distrust of the village's leadership, or Fuyue's preparation for a rebellion. Hyojin said, Don't worry, your patriarch is not a decisive person, we still have time. Jishui hurriedly asked, Then what should we do next? Hyojin smiled and was about to say something, but suddenly, 2 strong chakra reactions appeared in his Byakugan's field of vision, but due to the distance, he couldn't see the other party's appearance clearly. Byakugan's field of vision also has a distance limit. If it exceeds this limit, he can only barely observe the vague chakra reactions, but he can't see the specific details. So, he said to Jishui next to him, Stop first, there is someone in front. Jishui stopped and asked, Who is it? Kuroto observed for a while, and the corners of his mouth gradually curled up. Seeing Hyojin suddenly laughing, Jishui was confused and asked, Kuroto-san, what did you see? Hyojin replied casually, It's the 2 guys from Akatsuki, let's go. After a while, the 2 groups of people met in the forest. Looking up and down at Sasori and Kakuzu on the opposite side, Hyojin's smile became wider. At this time, Kakuzu's clothes were torn, and most of the Akatsuki's Red Cloud clothes were torn, leaving only a collar and half of the sleeves, looking very miserable. Compared with Kakuzu, Sasori on the side was even more miserable. His entire left arm was missing, as if it was torn off by something, his face was pale, and he looked like he had lost a lot of blood. At the same time, Sasori and Kakuzu were also observing Hyojin and Jishui. The black cloak on Hyojin's body was also torn at the moment, and the few wounds left when he fought with the elites of Uchiha were very conspicuous at this time. Jishui next to Hyojin gasped lightly, looking like her chakra was exhausted. Chapter 195. The 2 groups of people who encountered each other in the forest were not in a hurry to make a move. Under the Suijin mask, Hyojin's eyes flickered. At this moment, he was secretly estimating the state of Sasori and Kakuzu in front of him. From the appearance, it seems that Sasori's injury is more serious. The loss of an arm is fatal for many ninjas because it means that the ninja can't make hand seals or perform more complex ninjutsu. When Jiraiya fought against Pain, the difference between his performance before and after losing an arm was like heaven and earth. When Jiraiya had both of his arms intact, he could fight back and forth with Pain, but once he lost an arm, the situation of the battle suddenly changed, and Jiraiya almost lost the ability to resist, falling into a comprehensive disadvantage. But Sasori is not an ordinary ninja. As a puppet master, even if he only has one arm left, he can still control puppet. Therefore, to measure Sasori's combat power, the more important thing is to see how many powerful puppets he has left, and Sasori's puppets are all sealed in scrolls, so it is difficult to judge just by appearance. Moving his gaze to Kakuzu, Hyojin found that the chakra reaction in Kakuzu's body is much weaker than before. The consummate skill that Kakuzu is famous for is the forbidden technique of Takanobi Village, Earth Grudge, so in the vision of Hyojin's Byakugan, Kakuzu has no normal meridians in his body. To be more precise, Kakuzu's body is full of intertwined black meridians, and these black meridians are protecting the masks hidden inside Kakuzu's body. Even with Byakugan, Suijin can't see the details of the masks through the dense chakra reaction. Therefore, Hyojin can't check Kakuzu's injury in a normal way. He can only judge Kakuzu's current state based on the chakra reaction in Kakuzu's body. Judging from the chakra's amount, The chakra in his body is only 30% of what it used to be. Either he consumed a lot of chakra in the battle or he directly lost a few hearts. After carefully observing for a while, Hyojin found that the chakra reaction on Kakuzu's chest and right abdomen was weaker than other parts of his body. He thought to himself, could it be that the heart in these two places is damaged? If that's the case, Kakuzu only has 3 hearts left. Just as Hyojin was wondering if he should take this opportunity to get rid of Sasori and Kakuzu, Sasori on the opposite side spoke. He coughed twice and said, "You two damn bastards." As soon as he finished speaking, Scorpion coughed twice hurriedly. Blood even flowed out of the corner of his mouth. It seemed that his injuries were very serious. Hyojin didn't act rashly. Instead, he spread his hands and probed, "You can't blame us for this. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for being traitors. By the way, you two were able to escape from the hands of 3 generations Naruto. You have some ability." Sasori snorted and said, "I will not forget this debt." Kakuzu suddenly said, "It is not a wise choice to be the enemy of Akatsuki, you will regret it." Kuroto chuckled, "Let me return those words to you. You will regret it if you dare to make an enemy of Amatsukami." At this time, Sasori took out a scroll from his ninja bag and asked, "Do you want to fight?" Hyojin gently shook his head. "Forget it, a large number of my ninjas are still nearby, there is no need for us to fight here." Kakuzu nodded and said, "That is a wise choice. If we fight here, it will only benefit my." Jishue also nodded in agreement. Hyojin said, "Well, let's go our separate ways." Sasori held the scroll in his hand. "Good." After saying that, Hyojin and Jishue moved to one side, while Sasori and Kakuzu moved to the other side. Hyojin and Jishue moved towards the direction of the village, while Sasori and Kakuzu moved away from the direction of my village, so the two groups slowed down and passed each other. Just after the two groups passed each other, Hyojin quickly printed the hand seals, and then jumped into the air. Ice release. Magic mirror ice crystal. Jishue took 2 steps back. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Sasori shook the scroll. Secret technique. Dance of the fern. 2 masked monsters jumped out of Kakuzu's body. Wind release. Pressure. Lightning release. False darkness. The 4 people on both sides seemed to have a tacit understanding, and all of them attacked at the most appropriate time. Boom. 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 In an instant, the mountains in the forest began to shake. Compared with Hyojin and Jishue's probing, Sasori and Kakuzu were much more ruthless, especially Sasori. He used the Kagaya clan's puppet's unique technique Dance of the Fern. Compared with the Bone Vein secret technique Dance of the Fern, except for Hyojin's ice release magic mirror ice crystal, Jishue's great fireball technique and Kakuzu's pressure and false darkness ninjutsu's great fireball technique paled in comparison. Accompanied by the shaking of the earth, sharp bone spears rose from the ground and pierced the sky with an indomitable momentum. With quick reflexes, Suijin immediately carried Homasubi and hid in the ice mirrors suspended in midair. As the bone spear burst out, most of the ice mirrors were pierced by the bone spear, leaving only a few ice mirrors at the top of the ice mirror. Standing on a bone spear, Sasori was surprised. "Hey, you can use ice release? Are you a member of the Snow Clan?" At this time, Sasori didn't look weak at all, and compared to the previous weak appearance of coughing blood, he was like a completely different person. Hyojin poked out half of his body from the ice mirror, and while looking around for Kakuzu's figure, he said casually, "Hey, didn't we agree to go our separate ways?" Sasori snorted. "It seems that you were the one who attacked first." At this time, Hyojin found that Kakuzu was hiding behind a bone spear, and his 2 mask monsters were also scattered around, seemingly ready to attack at any time. Seeing that both Sasori and Kakuzu still have a lot of combat power left, Kuroto thought for a moment and said with a smile, "I am afraid that Sandaime Hokage is nearby. How about we continue to go our separate ways? Hearing Hyojin mention 3 generations Naruto, Sasori's face became gloomy. All right, it seems that it was just a misunderstanding. Hyojin nodded. Yes, it was just a misunderstanding. After saying that, Hyojin didn't deactivate the magic mirror ice crystal and directly urged the ice mirrors to line up and fly away. Sasori and Kakuzu also didn't speak any nonsense. Their figures flashed and disappeared into the forest of bone spears. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, before long, 3 generations Naruto arrived at the edge of the bone forest with a large number of umbu in his hands. Looking at the bone spears piercing the sky, 3 generations looked dignified and muttered to himself, "Is this the blood ninjutsu of the Kagaya clan of the Mist?" After a while, Fuyue also arrived with a group of Uchiha elite. Looking at the other side who didn't find anything, whether it was 3 generations or Fuyue, they all looked a little embarrassed. After a short silence, 3 generations sighed, "These bounty ninjas are not simple." Fuyue nodded again and again, yes. Chapter 196. Looking at the bone spears in front of them, whether it was Naruto of the 3 generations or Patriarch Fuyue of the Uchiha clan, all of their faces were gloomy. In their eyes, or in the eyes of the vast majority of shinobi village ninjas, the bounty ninjas are just a group of people who can't stand on the stage, and they don't need to pay too much attention to them. But after the series of fierce battles tonight, the people of Konoha had a drastic change in their perception of the bounty ninjas. I didn't expect that there would be so many experts hidden among the bounty ninjas. The face of 3 generations was extremely gloomy, and under the cold moonlight, his expression looked particularly gloomy and indescribable. The matter of the Uchiha clan in the village has already been a headache for 3 generations, and it was not easy to sign a peace treaty with Cloud Village, but such a bad thing happened, it really made him mentally and physically exhausted. Tonight, 3 generations actually didn't go all out, and even the shadow guards around him can see this. The reason why 3 generations chose to fight conservatively is because they are worried that if something happens to them, the Uchiha clan will no longer have any scruples, and the village is likely to fall into a civil war. And the external enemies such as Cloud and Rock Village will also take advantage of the situation, and at that time, under the internal and external troubles, the village will really fall into eternal damnation. But now it seems that 3 generations felt that they were indeed too conservative in the previous battle. So much so that they didn't even capture a single enemy. Losing prestige is a small matter, but losing an opportunity to obtain information about these bounty ninja organizations is a big deal. Fuyue's thoughts at this moment are all on the Homusubi of Amatsukami. For the Uchiha clan, such a sinister Manjikyu Sharingan possessor is a huge threat that can't be ignored. If the previous Nine Tails rebellion was really provoked by this Homusubi, then it undoubtedly shows that this Homusubi not only wants to destroy the Uchiha clan, but also the entire Mai. Unforgivable. Fuyue secretly made up his mind to find out the identity of this flame demon. Unlike Fuyue, who had a lot on his mind, the elites of Uchiha were all embarrassed at the moment. Previously they had been aggressive and arrogant, but now they were in a sorry state. Not only were all of them injured, but they had also gained nothing despite being outnumbered. Under the gaze of the Black Ops, they, who were naturally arrogant, simply felt ashamed. However, they all remembered the instructions of Patriarch Fuyue, and didn't reveal the fact that Homusubi of Amatsukami is an Uchiha clansman and that he possesses a Manjikyu Sharingan. It was not that the Uchiha clan had any tricks up their sleeves, but they simply did not want to reveal their dirty linen. Moreover, this matter is related to the Manjikyu Sharingan. In Fuyue's plan, Homusubi must die, but the Manjikyu Sharingan of Homusubi must be recovered by the Uchiha clan. Allowing Kakashi to keep one Sharingan is already the biggest compromise that the Uchiha clan can make to Naruto. This is also because Kakashi's Sharingan was willingly given to him by the Uchiha Obsidian. If Kakashi had obtained this Sharingan through other means, then the Uchiha clan would not have let it go. On Hyojin's side, after getting rid of Sasori and Kakuzu, Hyojin didn't fly far before he deactivated the magic mirror ice crystal. After several battles in a row, even with the support of Ryumyaku chakra, Kuroto felt a little overwhelmed at this moment and was unable to continue maintaining the magic mirror ice crystal. Jishui asked worriedly, "Kuroto-san, what should we do next?" Hyojin smiled and asked, "What are you worried about?" "Hayashi-sama knows that Watanabe's body is in our hands." Frowning, Jishui continued, "Suddenly, the body was taken away by 2 bounty ninjas. This flaw is too obvious. I am worried that Hayashi-sama will see through our disguise." Hyojin shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry about Hayashi-sama. No matter what happens, he won't cause any trouble. The cause of this incident is that Watanabe deliberately blackmailed the Hyuga clan, and now that the blame for Watanabe's death has been thrown out, as the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hayashi will not be stupid enough to take back the blame and put it on his own head." Jishui said worriedly, "Will Hayashi-sama keep the secret of Amatsukami for us?" Hyojin patted Jishui's shoulder and said with a smile, "You don't think too much. Hayashi-sama won't guess that we are the Suijin and Homasubi of Amatsukami. I used ice release. This alone can clear all suspicion on me." Jishui asked subconsciously, "What about me?" Hyojin glanced at Jishui, shook his head and sighed softly. Jishui's temperament is too straightforward, and he hasn't done this kind of shady business before. Unlike Hyojin, who has a lot of experience, it's inevitable that he will be a little flustered. "Calm down." After a pause, Hyojin said, "Don't worry, the 2 of us will always stay together. If I am cleared of suspicion, you will naturally not be suspected." Sigh. Jishui was relieved to hear this. Hyojin pondered for a moment, then turned to Jishui and asked, "By the way, when you fought with your patriarch, did you expose your Manjikyu Sharingan?" Shursui hurriedly said, "I didn't use the Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique, plus the mask that you gave me has been engraved with a sealing technique, so the patriarch shouldn't have seen the pattern in my Manjikyu Sharingan." As he spoke, Jishui's tone became uncertain, but the patriarch used his Manjikyu Sharingan's jutsu, and I cracked his jutsu, so he should be able to feel that my jutsu is also at the Manjikyu Sharingan level. After listening to Jishui's description, Hyojin asked again, "If it's just based on jutsu alone, if Homasubi attacked you, would it be possible for you to fall for it?" Jishui was taken aback for a moment, then immediately understood Hyojin's meaning. "You mean we should fake the sneak attack of Amatsukami's Suijin and Homasubi to clear our suspicion?" Hyojin nodded. In his opinion, as long as he created the illusion that he and Jishui had encountered Amatsukami's Suijin and Homasubi, it would be easy to clear their suspicion. After thinking for a while, Jishui said, "Although the jutsu power of the Manjikyu Sharingan also has a difference in strength, if I was attacked by Homasubi, it would be normal for me to be subdued by Homasubi. Then it's easy." After getting Jishui's reply, without thinking much, Hyojin's mind immediately generated a whole set of plans to fake an attack. Chapter 197. After returning to the village, Guy was sweating profusely as he looked around for Hyojin and Jishui. The first place he went was the Kumo envoy's encampment that Team 11 was responsible for guarding tonight, but after going back and forth several times, he didn't find Hyojin and Jishui. Suddenly, countless questions surged in his mind. Where did they go? Did they go after the bounty ninja like me and Kakashi? Then why didn't they meet up with us? Did they go in the wrong direction? Guy naturally understood that there was another possibility. That is, Hyojin and Jishui encountered Suijin and Homasubi in another place and were defeated. It's just that he has been avoiding this possibility. But the current situation forced him to consider this possibility, So he returned to the area where Hyojin and Jishui were stationed, estimated the direction in which they might pursue, and then flew all the way out of the village. After a while, Guy climbed over the wall and came to a forest outside the village. Kakashi and I intercepted the bounty ninja a dozen miles ahead. According to the route of the bounty ninja, he should have passed through this forest first, and then encountered me and Kakashi. If Kuroto and Jishui met him, then it's probably in this area. After a slight calculation of the direction and distance, Guy felt that if Hyojin and Jishui met the bounty ninja, then the place should be nearby. After a few steps, Guy found that the temperature around him was a little abnormal, so he was shocked and immediately quickened his pace. Then he found Hyojin and Jishui frozen in a dense forest. Kuroto, Jishui. With a cry of surprise, Kai quickly jumped over. The next morning, the Umbu Team 11 was summoned to Naruto's office by 3 generations. Among the 4 members of Team 11, Kakashi's arm was wrapped in bandages, and his face was a little pale. It seems that he was seriously injured in last night's battle. Hyojin and Jishui were also wrapped in bandages. These injuries were all real, but they were caused by themselves. At first glance they looked very serious, but in fact they were all flesh wounds. But this was also easy to explain. After all, the power of the ice sword was so strong, and after being hit by it, on the surface it looked like a small flesh wound. Among all the members, only Guy wasn't injured and looked energetic. At this time, 3 generations finished reading the report in his hand and asked with a tired face, "Why is there no description of Watanabe's attack in your report?" As the captain, Kakashi stepped forward and replied, "I'm sorry, Watanabe was not attacked in the mission, so we don't know the specific situation." 3 generations took out his pipe and took a puff, then asked, "Then, where do you think Watanabe was attacked?" Kakashi said with certainty, "Watanabe should have used his shadow clone to escape from the Umbu's surveillance during the day yesterday, so I can't guess where he was attacked. However, he must have a purpose for doing this, and I suspect that there is a conspiracy of Cloud Village." 3 generations nodded, seemingly agreeing with Kakashi's speculation, and immediately moved his gaze to Hyojin and Jishui and asked, "How are your injuries?" Hyojin and Jishui replied in unison, "Thank you for your concern, Naruto-sama, our injuries are not serious." 3 generations said, "I have read the reports of the 2 of you, are you sure that one of the attackers is the possessor of the Manjikyu Sharingan?" Jishui glanced at Hyojin and saw that Hyojin's expression was as usual, so she nodded to Naruto 3 generations and said, "Yes, I am sure." 3 generations asked again, "Could it be Shinichi Uchiha?" Jishui replied in accordance with the statement agreed with Hyojin in advance, "I'm sorry, the incident happened too suddenly, and I can't be sure whether he is Shinichi or not, but the other party does have the Manjikyu Sharingan." 3 generations nodded and didn't say anything more. 3 generations didn't doubt Hyojin and Jishui's report. Firstly, because of the extraordinary strength shown by the Suijin and Homasubi, it is inevitable that Hyojin and Jishui were defeated in a sneak attack. Secondly, Suijin is suspected to be a member of the Kirin Snow Clan, and Homasubi is very likely to be Uchiha Shinichi Uchiha who had defected before. In terms of identity, there is nothing suspicious about Hyojin and Jishui. The only thing that makes 3 generations feel uneasy is that the Uchiha clan actually concealed the fact that Homasubi possesses the Manjikyu Sharingan. In the view of 3 generations, as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, if Fuyue had fought with Homasubi, then there is no way that he wouldn't be aware of the fact that Homasubi possesses the Manjikyu Sharingan. In this way, there is only one explanation, and that is that Homasubi is most likely the Uchiha Shinichi who had defected before, and Fuyue didn't reveal the true identity of Homasubi. It is likely that he wanted to recall the Uchiha Shinichi who possesses the Manjikyu Sharingan, and the purpose of his actions is worthy of vigilance. At this moment Kakashi suddenly reported, Naruto-sama, I have noticed something. 3 generations looked at Kakashi and motioned him to continue. Kakashi said slowly, Tenseigan and Homasubi, the 2 bounty nin, only killed Watanabe last night. The brows of the 3 generations wrinkled, and a thoughtful look appeared on their faces. Hyojin's expression was still natural, as if he didn't care about this matter, but Jishui swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his chest rose and fell a little faster. Kakashi continued, They are both bounty nin, the traitorous Scorpion of the Sand Crypsis and the traitorous Kakuzu of the Takinen village, killed 5 of our Umbu in just one encounter. On the other hand, Tenseigan and Homasubi broke through the encirclement of the village, and experienced several battles, but they didn't kill any of our Mai Shinichi. This is really strange. Hyojin couldn't help but glance at Kakashi at this time, and thought to himself, Kakashi is really sharp. Even after experiencing so many things just now, he can still notice this detail, as expected of the disciple of 4 generations. This small detail, Hyojin knew that it would be noticed sooner or later, but he didn't expect Kakashi to find out so quickly. The 3 generations were busy with many things, so they really didn't notice this detail. At this time, listening to Kakashi's words, he also felt that the behavior of Tenseigan and Homasubi is a bit strange, not quite in line with the lawless and unscrupulous style of the precarious bounty nin, especially when compared with Kakuzu and Sasori. It is even more strange. After leaving the Naruto building, and saying goodbye to Kakashi and Guy, Hyojin said to Jishui, Quickly select the targets. Jishui was surprised, so urgent. 3 generations are suspicious. We must use the identity of Amatsukami to commit crimes as soon as possible and dispel the suspicions of the 3 generations. After a pause, Hyojin added, Remember, when choosing targets, give priority to a pair of brothers. Chapter 198. In fact, Hyojin isn't too worried that the 3 generations will investigate him and Jishui based on the abnormal behavior of Tenseigan and Homasubi. After all, no one knows what kind of people Tenseigan and Homasubi are, and it is inappropriate to judge their behavior without understanding their personality characteristics. What Hyojin really cares about is the reaction of the 3 generations after hearing that Homasubi possesses Manjikyu Sharingan. From the bewildered reaction of the 3 generations, Kuroto immediately noticed that Fuyue should have concealed the fact that Homasubi possesses Manjikyu Sharingan from the 3 generations. Are these Uchiha's brains broken? Such a good opportunity to shift the blame, why didn't they seize it? In this regard, Hyojin was puzzled. In his opinion, this is an excellent opportunity to shift the blame. As long as the Nine Tails Rebellion is blamed on the unknown Homasubi, the hostility of the village leaders towards the Uchiha clan will inevitably decrease. But Fuyue actually concealed this from the 3 generations, which not only caused the Uchiha clan to miss an opportunity to shift the blame, but also deepened the fear of the 3 generations towards the Uchiha clan. Looking back at the Naruto building again, Hyojin retracted his thoughts. According to the usual practice, when performing a mission to protect an important person, if an important person is killed, all the ninjas performing the mission will be punished, so Team 11 should have faced a very serious punishment. After the Sandaime-sama's personal attack ended in failure, no one brought up the matter of punishment anymore. Therefore, including Hyojin, not only did the members of Team 11 not receive any punishment, but even because of the hard battle last night, they were given a week off. After thinking for a while, Hyojin walked towards the hospital. In the hospital, after checking the injuries on Hyojin's body, the medical ninja on duty shook his head and said, Your body is full of flesh wounds, you will recover in a day or 2, there is no need for medical ninjutsu treatment. Hyojin smiled and said, I am afraid that my fiancé will be scared if I look like this, so please. The medical ninja on duty didn't say much. This level of treatment is not difficult for him, so he immediately used medical ninjutsu to treat the injuries on Hyojin's body. After completing the treatment, Hyojin removed the bandages on his body and quietly left the hospital. This trip to the hospital to treat his injuries is just to solve a small loophole. Because Hyuga Hyuga is about to meet Patriarch Hayashi, and the water clone body he is currently controlling doesn't have the caged bird seal, so if he uses the water clone body to meet Hyuga Hayashi, it is very likely that he will be exposed because of the caged bird seal. Because Hayashi, as the Hyuga Patriarch who has mastered the cage bird Manjikyu, he must have a secret technique to perceive the cage bird curse. Therefore, Suijin has to use the body of Een release to see Hippo, and in this way, the injuries of the water clone will become a loophole. After all, the body of Een release isn't injured, so he has to use a reasonable method to deal with the injuries of the water clone before using the body of Een release. Not long after, Hyojin, who has changed back to the Een release body, arrived at the Hyuga clan. After learning that Hyojin has arrived, Hayashi, who has been living in fear for the whole night, immediately summoned Hyojin to the Hyuga clan's mansion and asked anxiously, "I heard about what happened last night. What happened to the two bounty ninjas?" Hyojin shook his head. "I don't know who they are. Jishui and I were just approaching the outer wall with Watanabe's body when we were attacked, and the body was taken away by them. Later, we chased them out of the outer wall, but we were ambushed in the woods." Hayashi said with a worried look, "I heard that even 3 generations of Umbu failed to capture them, and instead lost a lot of Umbu. Those 2 bounty ninjas are not simple." After learning that a bounty ninja using ice release was involved in this matter, Hayashi ruled out the possibility of Hyojin pretending to be a bounty ninja, and instead suspected whether Hyojin and the ice release bounty ninja have a cooperative relationship, so he asked Hyojin about the bounty ninja as soon as they met. After learning that Hyojin didn't know the 2 bounty ninjas, Hayashi was both happy and worried. He was happy that Hyojin didn't collude with the 2 bounty ninjas of unknown origin, but worried that the 2 bounty ninjas took Watanabe's body from Hyojin's hands, which means that the 2 bounty ninjas know that Watanabe's death is related to Hyojin. If the 2 bounty ninjas spread this matter, then whether it is Hyojin or the Hyuga clan, I am afraid that both of them will be in a lot of trouble. Seemingly seeing Hayashi's worries, Hyojin said, "Patriarch, you don't have to worry too much. No one will believe the words of the bounty ninjas, and it is even more impossible for Naruto-sama to suspect the Hyuga clan just because of the rumors from the outside world." Hayashi gently nodded. In fact, Kuroto also understands that unless Watanabe's body is found directly in the Hyuga clan's mansion, otherwise, some rumors and slanders from the outside world will not cause substantial damage to the Hyuga clan. At this time, Hyojin said, "Patriarch, there are many suspicious points in this matter. Watanabe was able to sneak into the Hyuga clan's mansion. There must be someone who provided him with help. And this person not only knows the layout of the Hyuga clan's mansion, but also has a deep hostility towards our Hyuga clan. We have to be careful." Listening to Hyojin mentioning the matter of the traitor, Hayashi's face was a little gloomy. Last night's incident was obviously carefully planned by the Cloud Village, and the person who assisted Watanabe is most likely hiding in the Hyuga clan, because even the 3 generations of Naruto do not know the detailed layout of the Hyuga clan's mansion. Only the Hyuga clan with the Byakugan can help outsiders avoid the heavy guards, sneak into the Hyuga clan's mansion without being noticed, and even sneak into the Hyuga clan's bedroom. After a light sigh, Hayashi did not hide anything from Hyojin and bluntly said, "I have already done a preliminary investigation last night, and the result was nothing." Hyojin also rubbed his chin and murmured, "Who could it be?" At first, the first person Hyojin thought of was Danzo, but soon he ruled out Danzo. First, Danzo may not know the layout of the Hyuga clan's mansion, and second, Danzo has no reason to do so. Even if he is dissatisfied with the Hyuga clan, he will deal with the Hyuga clan after eliminating the Uchiha clan, and it is impossible for him to force the Hyuga clan to side with the Uchiha clan before dealing with the Uchiha clan. To put it bluntly, in the original time and space, whether it was watching the 3 generations die in the hands of Orochimaru or destroying the Uchiha clan, Danzo's purpose is very clear, and that is Naruto's position. No matter how despicable his means are, he has no intention of destroying the Mai clan. And the person who assisted Watanabe last night obviously wanted to drag the Hyuga clan into the water and encourage the 2 Mai clans, Uchiha and Hyuga clans, to rebel, provoking the civil war of the Mai clan. In other words, the person who assisted Watanabe was aiming to destroy the Hyuga clan and destroy the Mai clan. Chapter 199. In fact, if it can be determined that there is a traitor, then the scope of the investigation is still very easy to delineate. First of all, the members of the main family can be excluded, because the main family is small in number, and they also enjoy the power and status brought by the main family, so there is no reason for them to betray the main family. Although there are many members of the branch family, the number of people who really have a conflict with the main family will not be too many. As long as these people are investigated one by one, there will be results sooner or later. Hyojin wanted to mention his opinion to Hayashi, but seeing that Hayashi was distracted, he changed the topic and said, "Patriarch, I have a request." Hyojin said, "When Yuki was patrolling the outer wall last night, she encountered the 2 bounty ninjas and was almost killed, so I want to ask you to transfer Yuki to the clan's land." Hayashi smiled and said, "No problem, I will communicate with Naruto-sama." Uchiha clan's mansion. Fuyue sat in the hall with his hands crossed over his chest with a serious expression. At this time, Jishue came outside the house and asked, "Patriarch, are you looking for me?" Fuyue said in a deep voice, "Come in." "Yes." Jishue responded, opened the door and walked into the hall. After Jishue sat down, Fuyue looked at the injuries on Jishue's body and frowned. His already serious face added an indescribable gloominess. When he learned that Jishue was attacked by Homasubi, Fuyue panicked. Currently, in the Uchiha clan, only he and Jishue have 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. Once something happens to Jishue, it will undoubtedly be a fatal blow to the Uchiha clan that has begun to prepare for the rebellion. Later, after learning that Jishue was not seriously injured, he was relieved. At the same time, he couldn't help but secretly rejoice that Homasubi didn't take away Jishue's Manjikyu Sharingan. Perhaps the Sandaime-sama was nearby and scared them off. 3 generations had intercepted Kamikaze's Suijin near the outer wall, which was very close to where Jishue had been attacked. Therefore, Fuyue had to make up the story himself. Seeing that Fuyue was silent for a long time, Jishue asked, "Patriarch, is there something you need from me?" When Fuyue snapped back to reality, he immediately asked, "How did you lose to the Balrog?" Jishue replied, "I didn't expect the other party to have Manjikyu Sharingan, and in a moment of carelessness, I fell for the other party's genjutsu." Fuyue nodded slightly. "This fire demon's ocular powers are not inferior to ours. If we want to deal with him, we must join forces." Jishue was curious. "How are you going to deal with him?" "The family has already issued a bounty, and at the same time, I have also arranged for people to collect information about Amatsukami." After a pause, Fuyue's killing intent surged out of his body. "Once we find his whereabouts, we will act immediately. He betrayed the family, he must die." Jishue didn't expect that Fuyue's killing intent towards Homasubi would be so strong. Fuyue glanced at Jishue and said, "Don't run around during this time, be on standby." Jishue had no choice but to nod helplessly. In the dark cave, illusory figures created by the genjutsu stood quietly on the 10 fingers of the giant stone statue. There is no doubt that this is a rare gathering of all the members of Akatsuki. As the leader of the organization, Pain glanced at Sasori and Kakuzu and said flatly, Tell me everything that happened last night in detail. Sasori didn't say anything. Seeing this, Kakuzu said in a muffled voice, "Last night, we encountered Suijin and another member of Amatsukami. At that time, they were being chased by the 3 generations Naruto and the Uchiha clan's patriarch of my village." Kakuzu told him everything that had happened last night in a straightforward manner. Hearing that the 2 members of Amatsukami managed to escape from the pursuit of the 3 generations Naruto and Uchiha clan's patriarch of my village, the Akatsuki members were surprised. Even Pain, the leader, had to pay attention to this Amatsukami that suddenly appeared in his sight. Hirako, who was standing on the other finger, asked, "That Yama was also a member of Amatsukami, right?" Kakuzu nodded. According to Suijin, Yama is the leader of Amatsukami. Shino, who was standing beside Hirako, asked, "Are the members of Amatsukami really that powerful?" Without waiting for Kakuzu to answer, Sasori snorted coldly, "Are you doubting me?" Shino smiled awkwardly and said no more. Shinichi Uchiha raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Do you know why Amatsukami is being chased by the 3 generations Naruto?" All the members immediately looked at Shinichi Uchiha. Shinichi Uchiha said, "I received news that Suijin and Homasubi of Amatsukami killed the leader of Kumo's diplomatic mission that was sent to my village to sign the peace agreement, and exchanged his body for the bounty. Haha, this is so funny." Shinichi Uchiha and Bippa Juzo's group, like Sasori and Kakuzu, were also active in the Land of Fire, so they quickly heard the news that Watanabe's body was sold to the black market. Uchiha Shinichi Uchiha was happy to see Mai's defeat. Pain was silent for a while and finally said to everyone, "Hirako, Shino, you 2 also go to the Land of Fire to assist Sasori and Kakuzu. First, get rid of Orochimaru, then investigate Amatsukami." Hirako hesitated for a moment and immediately replied, "Okay." Shino also nodded, "Okay." Sasori covered his missing arm and said in a bad tone, "I may need to modify my body, so it will take some time." Kakuzu echoed, "I also need some time to replace a few hearts." Knowing that Sasori and Kakuzu suffered a big loss in the hands of Mai, Pain nodded and said, "Okay." After deactivating the magic lantern body technique, Pain turned around and walked into a room on a high tower in the Land of Rain. Inside the room, Obsidian, who was leaning against the wall, crossed his arms and said lightly, "Is there any news about Amatsukami?" Pain relayed the information reported by Sasori and Kakuzu to Obsidian, then said, "Your previous worries may be right. This Amatsukami is indeed a threat. Being able to assassinate the leader of the Kumo delegation in my village, the head of the 5 great shinobi villages, and escape unscathed under the pursuit of 3 generations Naruto and Uchiha. This achievement alone is enough to make Pain raise his eyebrows. What's more, it was only 2 members of Amatsukami who were able to do this. As for how many members Amatsukami has, how strong their leader Yama is, and so on, Pain doesn't know anything about it, so he can't afford to be careless. Conan walked to Pain's side and asked softly, "Do you need me to go to the Land of Fire?" Pain shook his head. "It's not the time yet." Obsidian pondered for a moment and said, "I will go to the Land of Fire in the near future. I need someone to add fuel to the fire regarding Uchiha." Chapter 200. After leaving the Uchiha mansion, Jishui walked on the long street of the clan with a heavy heart. The people on the street were coming and going, some people were in a hurry, some people were leisurely, most of them haven't even awakened their Sharingan, they are ordinary people, they are not even ninjas. Shui sighed faintly as he strolled among the clansmen. It's time to make up your mind, otherwise, what awaits your Uchiha clan is the whole clan, old and young. The words that Hyojin said before echoed in his mind at this moment. Slowly stopping, he looked around, looking at the familiar and vivid faces of the people coming and going. He secretly made up his mind. He must not let the whole clan be buried together with a few ambitious people. Suddenly, a figure stopped in front of Jishui and said in a strange voice, "Yo, isn't this Jishui?" Jishui calmly asked, "Ryota, what's the matter?" The person who stopped Jishui's way is called Uchiha Ryota, 24 years old. He is a genius in the Uchiha clan, the captain of the 3rd Brigade of the police force. He awakened his Sharingan at the age of 11, and at the age of 16, he obtained the Samagatama Sharingan. He shone brilliantly in the 3rd Shinobi War. His strength is second only to Fuyue and Jishui in the Uchiha clan, and he is also one of the most radical and arrogant members of the Uchiha clan. Before Shinichi and Jishui revealed their Manjikyu Sharingan, Ryota was the strongest in the Uchiha clan, second only to the patriarch Fuyue. He was in charge of a brigade of the police force, and his status in the Uchiha clan was far above the young Jishui. But after Jishui revealed his Manjikyu Sharingan, Ryota instantly lost his position as the second strongest in the clan and fell into a very embarrassing situation. The arrogant Uchiha Ryota naturally couldn't tolerate being suppressed by a clansman who was almost 10 years younger than him, so one night, he found Jishui and challenged Jishui. The result was self-evident. There is a huge gap between the Samagatama Sharingan and the Manjikyu Sharingan in terms of pupil power. Even if Ryota's chakra amount and physical strength are above Jishui, it still can't make up for the gap in pupil power, so in just one confrontation, Ryota was defeated by Jishui's genjutsu. From then on, Ryota regarded Jishui as his strongest opponent, and he wanted to compete with Jishui in everything. At the same time, he also began to constantly hone himself, hoping to open his own Manjikyu Sharingan, but it is not easy to open the Manjikyu Sharingan, so after a long time of hard work, he still didn't gain anything, and even his pupil power didn't improve much, which is one of the reasons why he has been acting more and more extreme recently. Uchiha Ryota said with a playful look on his face, "I heard that you were defeated by a bounty ninja yesterday?" Jishui didn't want to mention what happened last night, so he said, "It has nothing to do with you. It's a pity that I had a mission yesterday, so I couldn't participate in the family hunt, otherwise, Uchiha Ryota stopped halfway, and then he chuckled twice, as if he was mocking Jishui, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan, but was still defeated and injured. Jishui ignored Ryota's sarcasm, and he flashed sideways, wanting to leave. Uchiha Ryota's figure flashed, and he stopped Jishui again and said coldly, "Just you wait, one day, I will also open the Manjikyu Sharingan, and I will never be defeated by a bounty ninja like you." Jishui's face sank, and a thought flashed in his mind. If he also awakens the Manjikyu Sharingan, then the family will immediately start a rebellion. At the same time as this thought flashed, Jishui suddenly remembered that Ryota has an older brother named Uchiha Hideki, who is also a jonin in the Uchiha clan, but compared to the excellent Uchiha Ryota, he is slightly mediocre in Hyojin's house. After asking you, who was busy cleaning, to sit down beside him, Hyojin said with a rare serious face, "Why didn't you tell me that your team was sent to patrol the outer wall? You whispered, yesterday was just an accident. Thinking of what happened last night, you was still scared." She didn't expect that someone would be fierce enough to sneak into the Mai. Hyojin said, "I have already mentioned it to the patriarch, and he promised me that he will transfer you to the clan." You knew that Hyojin was doing this for her own good, so she bit her lip and nodded. Although the people of the Hyuga clan can open the Byakugan, their talent is also high and low. Yu's talent is average, and she is only a little better than Hyojin before he was injected with the gene serum. Therefore, at this age, she only has the strength of a Chunin, and if she encounters any strong enemy, her life will be in danger. Looking at Yu, who lowered her head as if she had done something wrong, Hyojin sighed softly. This is also one of the concerns that Hyojin doesn't dare to go to the front stage. Once he goes to the front stage, he will be in the same situation as 4 generations, being spied on and plotted against by enemies in the dark. Everything around him, including his lover, friends, fellow clansmen, etc., will become his weakness, and will be targeted by the enemy. Hyojin thought to himself that in terms of adaptability, he is far less sensitive and decisive than 4 generations. Especially when his wife and children were attacked, and the village was in danger, 4 generations could still remain calm and see through the truth of Obsidian's godly power space, and calmly repel the Obsidian. This alone is particularly amazing. Throughout the entire shinobi world, few people have such superb combat wisdom and such calm mental quality. If 4 generations had the same power as Madara, and then let the two fight, Hyojin feels that 4 generations' chances of winning will be slightly higher than Madara's. But even 4 generations, who was excellent enough to surpass Sannin at a young age and made 3 generations take the initiative to give up his position, still fell under Obsidian's plot. From this, it can be seen that in the shinobi world, being in the light is very disadvantageous, especially when one's own strength is not enough to sweep everything. Thinking about it, Hyojin's thoughts gradually drifted to the experiment that can help him on the road to godhood. After the fierce battle last night, his harvest was not small. Putting aside the 45 million gold bounty that he had exchanged for Watanabe's corpse in the black market, just the increase in the soul compatibility of his water escape clone body was already an immeasurable amount of wealth. After the run-in, the compatibility between his water elusive clone body and his own soul had increased significantly. In addition, he used the water clone body to complete the fusion of water attribute chakra and wind attribute chakra, and truly mastered the ice release Kekkei Genkai, greatly improving the strength of the water clone body, making the water clone body almost as strong as his Ein release body. Chapter 201. In Hyojin's plan, a qualified clone must have at least 2 elements. Firstly, it must be highly compatible with Hyojin's soul without any rejection. Secondly, the strength of the clone must be close to or even reach the level of the Ein body. This is the first element. Kuroda has almost figured it out. To put it simply, he could either spend a lot of time to slowly accumulate the compatibility, or he could increase the compatibility between the clone and the soul through frequent battles. As for the second element, Hyojin had also gained some insights through the development of the water clone. In his opinion, the simplest and most effective way to increase the strength of the clone was to use the clone to develop a blood limit boundary that was compatible with the clone's chakra attribute. For example, the water clone. Before Hyojin mastered the ice blood limit boundary, the clone's strength was far inferior to his Ein body. As he used the water clone to master the fusion of water attribute chakra and wind attribute chakra attributes, he developed the ice blood limit boundary that was based on water attribute chakra. As a result, the strength of his water clone had increased significantly and it was showing signs of approaching his Ein body. It's time to consider other clones with chakra attributes. As he thought about this, Hyojin started to think about the next step of his experiment. Currently, the water clone was almost perfect in all aspects. All that was left was to polish it, and there were no more technical hurdles that were difficult to overcome. Therefore, it was time to put the next project of the clone on the agenda. After having the experience of developing the water clone, Hyojin was not in a hurry to determine the main attribute of the next clone. This was because he still needed to plan the blood limit boundary that was based on the main attribute. The water clone's main attribute was water attribute and the blood limit boundary that was extended was ice escape. Using this as an example, if the main attribute of the next clone was fire attribute, Hyojin would need to plan the blood limit boundary that was extended with fire attribute as the main attribute. A few days later, Jishui mysteriously approached Hyojin. Looking at Jishui's determined eyes, Hyojin knew that he must have made a decision, so he invited Jishui into the house unhurriedly. After sitting down, Jishui said, "Senior, I have chosen my target." Unsurprised, Hyojin asked casually, Who did you choose? Cool Uchiha, Hideki Uchiha. After a pause, Jishui took a deep breath and said, "They are a pair of brothers, and both of them belong to the radical faction of the family." Hyojin had heard of Uchiha Ryota. It was said that he was one of the strongest elite ninjas in the Uchiha clan and held a very high position in the police force. In terms of official rank, he was almost the same rank as the commander of the barrier class, sealing class, and medical class. Among all the commanders in the village, he belonged to the higher position and the stronger group. As for Uchiha Hideki, Hyojin was not very familiar with him. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin asked curiously, "Why did you choose them?" Jishui hesitated for a moment and finally sighed and explained, "Not only is Ryota one of the most extreme radicals in the family, but he is also the #1 member of the family who is responsible for carrying out assassination missions. His hands are stained with the blood of many of his fellow villagers." Hyojin nodded lightly. "Oh, so he is the person who specializes in dirty work in the Uchiha clan. Rich ninja clans often involved a lot of benefits, so it was inevitable that 1 or 2 clansmen who specialized in dirty work would be needed in the clan. The Hyuga clan was no exception." At the thought of Ryota, Jishui could not help but frown. He has a very violent temperament. I don't know why recently, but there is a faint smell of blood on his body. It gives me a very bad feeling. I even suspect that the missing Umbu spies of the Uchiha clan were secretly killed by him. Hyojin raised his teacup and took a sip. "What about Uchiha Hideki?" "Hideki is Ryota's brother. He does not have many evil deeds, but..." Sighing again, Jishui continued, "But he is in charge of stockpiling war resources in the family. If we can get rid of him, it will greatly delay the family's war preparations." Hyojin said, "It seems like you have thought about these 2 goals carefully. One was an elite jonin who specialized in dirty work in the Uchiha clan, and the other was a jonin who stockpiled war resources for the Uchiha clan. As long as these 2 were eliminated, the radical faction in the Uchiha clan would definitely suffer a great loss." Jishui, however, lowered his head and did not say a word. Even though he knew that this kind of plotting against his own clansmen was beneficial to the clan and the village, Jishui still felt ashamed, as if he had done something wrong. Glancing at Jishui, Hyojin could roughly guess his mentality. Chuckling lightly, he asked, "Oh right, in the Uchiha clan, you can't be the only one who supports peace, right?" Jishui answered awkwardly, "Most of the jonins in the clan. Most of them support the rebellion. However, among the Chunin and Genin, there are still many who oppose the rebellion." Hyojin stared at Jishui. "Only some of the Chunin and Genin support your idea?" Being stared at by Hyojin, Jishui felt even more awkward. Suddenly, he remembered something and said, "Itachi also opposes the rebellion. Itachi Uchiha." Hyojin moved his gaze away from Jishui and said thoughtfully, "Then, are you confident that you can pull him to our side?" Jishui was stunned at first, then he shook his head and said, "That's impossible. Itachi is the eldest son of the clan leader. If nothing goes wrong, he will be the next clan leader of the Uchiha clan. So, he is different from me. He will never lay his hands on the clansmen." Hyojin looked at Jishui with a strange expression. Seeing this, Jishui hurriedly explained, "Senior, what I said is true. Anyone in the Uchiha clan can harm the clan, but Itachi will never do that." The reason why Jishui guided Itachi whenever he was free was that he hoped to change the tense relationship between the Uchiha clan and the village by influencing Itachi, the next clan leader of the Uchiha clan. In daily contact, Jishui also learned that Itachi was a very gentle person, so he felt that Itachi would never do anything against the clansmen. Looking at Jishui's solemn vow, Hyojin was speechless. In the original time and space, the one who destroyed the Uchiha clan with his own hands was Itachi Uchiha, who Jishui said would never do anything to the clansmen. Hyojin couldn't help but sigh. Jishui's taste in people was really messed up. Hyojin even suspected that God felt that he owed Jishui too much in this aspect, so he gave Jishui the god of creation that could change other people's will. Chapter 202. After a moment of silence, Hyojin slowly said, "Actually, you can try to probe Itachi's intentions. In the Uchiha clan, you need to have a few helpers." Jishui was a little puzzled. "Why must we choose Itachi?" Hyojin said casually, "As you said, he is the next patriarch of the Uchiha clan. If we can get him to agree with our actions, I think you will feel better." This is naturally not the real reason why Hyojin wants to win over Itachi. There is only one real reason to win over Itachi. That is, Itachi's potential is worth Hyojin's time and effort to win him over. Jishui still insisted on her opinion. "Kuroto-san, I don't think your idea is realistic, and once the negotiation fails, our actions will be exposed." Seeing Jishui so insistent, Hyojin weighed the pros and cons for a moment, and didn't continue to force Jishui. "Then I will listen to you." In fact, Jishui is not clear about his position in Itachi's mind. For most ordinary people, measuring a person's position in another person's heart is a complicated and difficult thing to get an accurate answer. But the Uchiha clan is different. Uchiha clansmen tend to be emotional and tend to go to extremes, so there is a very simple way to accurately judge a person's position in the heart of an Uchiha clansman. That is, whether the death of this person can stimulate the Uchiha clansman to awaken his Sharingan, or evolve his Manjikyu Sharingan. His best friend Kakashi's injury caused Obsidian Sharingan, who has not been able to awaken his Sharingan, and was known as the last place by his peers, to awaken his Sharingan. Moreover, he awakened 2 Magatama Sharingan at once. Lin's death also allowed Obsidian Sharingan to evolve from 2 Magatama Sharingan to Manjikyu Sharingan. From this example, it could be seen just how important Kakashi and Lin were to the Obsidian. Similarly, Jishui's death can stimulate Itachi to evolve his own Manjikyu Sharingan. Not to mention anything else, this alone shows the position of Jishui in Itachi's heart. It could be said that Jishui's death had destroyed Itachi's confidence in trying to mend the rift between his family and the village, forcing him to make up his mind to choose one side and abandon the other. After dropping the topic of roping in Itachi, Hyojin and Jishui started discussing their plan to plot against Uchiha Ryota and Uchiha Hideki. First of all, this operation must be carried out in the name of God's organization. This is the only way to make the Uchiha clan feel the threat of Amatsukami and shift the spearhead from Konoha to Amatsukami. Therefore, this time, not only do they have to deal with Uchiha Ryota and Uchiha Hideki, but they also have to deliberately leave behind a witness, and it would be best if this witness is a member of the Uchiha clan. After thinking for a while, Jishui frowned and said, "The problem now is that Ryota and Hideki don't live together. Although they are brothers, they are usually busy with work and rarely meet in private, so it won't be easy to catch both of them in one fell swoop." Hyojin also pondered. It's naturally easy to ask Jishui to invite the 2 brothers out, but this may expose Jishui and cause more trouble, so it's best not to have anything to do with Jishui. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't think of a perfect solution, so Hyojin said, "Then let's pick one of them first." Jishui nodded and said, "I'm afraid that's the only way. But who should we target first? Ryota or Hideki?" "Let's target Uchiha Hideki first." Hyojin paused and explained to Jishui, "Isn't Uchiha Ryota very arrogant? As long as we deal with his brother first, with his personality, he definitely won't let this matter go. He will definitely investigate this matter with all his strength, and then we will have many opportunities to deal with him." "Okay, I will go find out Hideki's whereabouts and choose a suitable place to strike." With that, Jishui hurriedly left Hyojin's house. After waiting for Jishui to leave, Hyojin took out a map from the bookshelf and spread it on the table. This is a map of my village, hand-drawn by Kuroto a few days ago. Although it's not very accurate, it's more than enough for reference. Looking at the areas outside the village on the map, Kuroto's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. After a while, he sighed. Sigh, there really isn't any place to hide near the village. The reason Hyojin looked at the map is to build a prison to imprison the Uchiha clansmen who are about to be plotted against by him. Yes, Hyojin has no intention to kill Uchiha Ryota and Uchiha Hideki. In Hyojin's view, the Uchiha clansmen represent infinite possibilities, far more valuable than a few Sharingan in a jar. Therefore, Hyojin has always felt that Danzo is very short-sighted, thinking that just because he got some Sharingan, he will receive all the inheritance of the Uchiha clan. But in fact, whether it is Obsidian or Itachi, neither of them paid much attention to him. Only someone like Sasuke would rush to find him and regard him as the enemy of the Uchiha clan. At the thought of experimenting on the Uchiha clansmen, ideas flashed in Hyojin's mind. In fact, he has a method that can make the Uchiha clansmen open the Manjikyu Sharingan. This method is not complicated. First of all, choose an excellent Uchiha clansman who has 3 Tomo Sharingan. It is best if this Uchiha clansman has a lover that he admires. Then let Jishue cast the strongest Genjutsu Kodo Amatsukami on this Uchiha clansman, further strengthening the feelings of this Uchiha clansman for his lover, making him like the obsidian Irene, love his lover more than anything in the world. Finally, kill his lover in front of him. Hyojin believes that after the strongest Genjutsu Kodo Amatsukami increases his emotions, when his beloved dies, this Uchiha clansman will definitely go berserk. At that time, the probability of him evolving the Manjikyu Sharingan will be extremely high. But just thinking about it, Hyojin put this idea to the back of his mind. Because this method is too sinister. Not only does it play with the will of others, but it also hurts the innocent. Even Hyojin, who has always pursued self-interest, feels that it is too wicked. What's more, Hyojin is very sure that Jishue will never agree to use Kodo Amatsukami in this way. Unlike other Uchiha clansmen who are obsessed with power, Jishue has always been in awe of his own power. If other Uchiha clansmen can exert 100% of their own strength, and a genius like Itachi can exert 110% of his own strength, then Jishue, who is used to restraining himself, can only exert 80% of his own strength at most. This is a character that is difficult to change, unless he uses Kodo Amatsukami on himself. Chapter 203. Looking at the mountain in front of him, Hyojin showed a thoughtful expression. The prosperity of Mai is far greater than that of the other major shinobi villages, so Mai is surrounded by villages, markets, and various trade routes. It is not easy to find a place to hide outside of my village. Hyojin visited many places and finally stopped in front of this mountain. This mountain is called Hazel City Mountain, located southwest of my village, about 30 miles away from my village. With Hyojin's release, it will only take him a moment to make a round trip. Setting the prison here, not too far nor too close, it's just right. Hyojin murmured softly. This prison is not only a place to imprison the Uchiha clan, but also a laboratory for Hyojin to conduct experiments on the Uchiha clan, so it must be very hidden. Since it is a laboratory, anything is possible. Considering that the Uchiha clan may awaken their Manjikyu Sharingan in the prison, this prison cannot be too close to the village. Otherwise, if a Susanoo suddenly appears in the prison and alarms the ninjas of the village, then the prison will immediately be exposed. After pondering for a while, Hyojin slowly printed the hand seals and entered the Tenseigan chakra mode. Flying into the air, Kuroto followed the undulating veins of Hazel City Mountain, using the Tenseigan to observe all the way, and finally found a natural karst cave on the side of the mountain. Landing on the ground, Hyojin gently stroked the rock wall while using the Tenseigan to observe the karst cave inside the rock wall. After some careful observation, Kuroto confirmed that this karst cave is naturally formed, deep in the belly of the mountain, and there is no other way to connect to the outside world except for the underground rock layer. In other words, if he wanted to use this natural karst cave, Hyojin would have to cut through the rock wall and manually dig a passage to the karst cave. Originally, Hyojin was prepared to dig a large cave in the belly of the mountain. Now that he had discovered this naturally formed cave, it saved him a lot of trouble. Therefore, he immediately condensed a truth-seeking jade, clenched it in his right hand and growled, "Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion." In an instant, a golden light sword appeared in his right hand. In the face of the indestructible Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, even the sturdy rocks were as soft as tofu, easily sliced apart. Swinging his sword again and again, Hyojin went deeper and deeper into the mountain amidst the dust and stone fragments. Not long after, he created a 2-meter-tall and 20-meter-long tunnel. Entering the natural karst cave, Hyojin circled around inside and began to plan the layout of the prison in his mind. A few days later, Jishui came to Hyojin's house. After inviting Jishui into the house, Hyojin asked, "How's the information?" Jishui quickly said, "I've already found out Hideki's whereabouts. Tomorrow, he will go out of the village. This is a good opportunity, we can ambush him on the road." Hyojin took out a map, spread it on the table, and said, "Why is he going out of the village? Which route will he take?" Jishui quickly pointed out on the map, "This is the route." Following the route Jishui pointed out, Hyojin's eyes quickly fell on the ruins marked on the map, and said, "He wants to go to the Land of Cats?" The Land of Cats is the settlement of a group of ninja cats, located in the ruins of an abandoned town. This group of ninja cats are good at forging ninja tools and making all kinds of strange weapons. Their products are deeply loved by the Uchiha clan, so they are also the most common summoning beasts of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Shinichi's summoning beast, Moneymaker, is a ninja cat in the Land of Cat. Jishui nodded. "Well, I haven't found out what he's going to do, but I guess he's going to order shurikens, kunai, and other ninja tools from Grandma Cat." Hyojin asked, "What about the witness?" For Hyojin, it doesn't matter where he does it. But considering that he wants to put the blame on Amatsukami, he has to choose a suitable witness at the place where he does it. Jishui pointed on the map again. "This is a ninja tool throwing ground of our Uchiha clan. It's on the edge of the outer wall of the village. I guess Hideki won't leave the village through the main gate, and this area is under the control of our Uchiha police force, so he will most likely use this area to leave the village." Hyojin asked to confirm, "Your plan is to ambush him near this training ground, and then use the Uchiha clansmen who are training in the training ground to act as witnesses of the incident?" Jishui nodded. Staring at the map and combing through the plan, he didn't find any obvious loopholes, so Hyojin said, "Okay, let's do it." The next day at dusk, both Hyojin and Jishui changed into Amatsukami's uniform and lurked in the woods near the Uchiha clan's training ground. Looking at Hyojin's mask, Jishui asked curiously, "Senpai, why did you change your mask this time?" "Ahem," Hyojin coughed twice and said with a smile, "Remember, I'm now the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, not the previous Suijin." Jishui was still a little puzzled. "Why do you want to play different roles?" Hyojin casually said, "Since it's an organization, it can't have only one member, so I have to play different roles and disguise myself." Jishui expressed her understanding, "So that's how it is. If an organization always had only one member active outside, it would inevitably raise suspicions after a long time." Time passed, and the sun gradually set in the west. Seeing that the sky was getting darker, Hyojin asked Jishui, "Will he really leave the village today?" Jishui also wasn't too sure. "According to the news I heard, he should be leaving by now, but I'm not sure why he hasn't appeared yet." Looking around, Sui Jin asked again. He wouldn't have left the village from somewhere else, would he? Jishui shook his head. I don't think so. Just as Jishui was about to explain to Hyojin why he was so sure that Haichu Uchiha would leave the village from here, a sneaky figure suddenly appeared in their field of vision. Hyojin said to himself, "He's here." Jishui nodded lightly. The figure that suddenly appeared in their field of vision was none other than Hyojin and Jishui's target, Haichu Uchiha. At this time, Haichu Uchiha wasn't wearing the uniform of the Uchiha clan's police force. Instead, he was wearing a gray cloak without any clan insignia or logo. His sneaky appearance made people feel that there was something wrong with him. Chapter 204. Whoosh Whoosh. Whoosh. Hyojin and Jishui teleported in front of Uchiha Hideki, blocking his path. "You are." When he saw Hyojin and Jishui's disguise, Uchiha Hideki was shocked. "Amatsukami? You are members of Amatsukami?" Just like Uchiha Ryota, Uchiha Hideki did not participate in the fierce battle between Uchiha and Amatsukami that night. However, as a jonin of the Uchiha clan and a member of the radical faction who actively encouraged Uchiha to rebel, Hideki Uchiha had already heard about Amatsukami from the Uchiha clan meeting. Therefore, Kuroto not only learned that there is a Manjikyu Sharingan possessor of Manjikyu Sharingan in Amatsukami who is hostile towards both Uchiha and Konoha, he also learned about the attire and code names of the members of Amatsukami. When he thought about how even Patriarch Fuyue, who had the Manjikyu Sharingan, couldn't win against Amatsukami, Hideki Uchiha's face sank. As he activated the 3 Tomo Sharingan, he secretly thought about how to escape. This time, he disguised himself to go to the Land of Cats to retrieve the ninja tools that the Uchiha clan had specially made for the sake of rebelling. Therefore, he knew that if something happened to him, the matter of Uchiha's rebellion would be exposed. Seeing that Uchiha Hideki had activated his Sharingan, Hyojin said coldly, 3 Tomo Sharingan. Hideki Uchiha Hideki was shocked and thought, their target is the Sharingan? At this time, Jishui also cooperated with Hyojin and said, in the Uchiha clan, only their leader and Uchiha Jishui have the Manjikyu Sharingan. It's not that easy to encounter them. Hideki Uchiha Hideki gritted his teeth and said, you bastards, how dare you target the Manjikyu Sharingan? Damn it. After that, Uchiha Hideki took out a signal flare and threw it into the sky. He couldn't care less at this time. Whoosh, boom, in an instant, a dazzling flame blossomed in the dusky sky. Hyojin and Jishui were waiting for Uchiha Hideki to release the signal flare, so they didn't stop him. Instead, they looked around and waited for the nearest Uchiha clan members to arrive. After releasing the signal flare, Uchiha Hideki heaved a sigh of relief. He then looked at Hyojin and Jishui as if he was facing a formidable enemy. The one wearing the flame mask must be the Manjikyu Sharingan member of Amatsukami, Homasubi, Homasubi, Homasubi. Then who is the one beside him? Devil Mask. Could it be the leader of Amatsukami, Yama? No one knew better than the Uchiha clan what the Manjikyu Sharingan meant. Uchiha Hideki doesn't even dare to imagine how strong Yama is even though he has the Manjikyu Sharingan, but Homasubi is still suppressed by Yama in Amatsukami. How strong is Yama? No. I can't continue like this. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't even need to do anything. Realizing that the fear in his heart was growing, Uchiha Hideki, as a jonin, immediately woke up. After making up his mind, he quickly made a hand seal and shouted, Fire release. Grand fireball technique. In an instant, a huge fireball flew towards Hyojin and Jishui. Hyojin's expression was calm as he slowly raised his right hand and faced the fireball. Whoosh, a huge repulsive force appeared like a pair of invisible hands, and the grand fireball technique that Uchiha Hideki had cast was forcefully dissipated. This, Uchiha Hideki froze on the spot, and the battle intent that he had just gathered in his heart dissipated. Although he didn't expect his great fireball jutsu to be able to deal with these two troublesome enemies in front of him, he didn't expect that his fire-release ninjutsu would be inexplicably defeated by the other party with just a wave of his hand. Not to mention Uchiha Hideki, even Jishuei who was beside Hyojin was confused. Hyojin's rain pull was colorless and formless, and it didn't require any hand seals. Therefore, even Jishuei's Manjikyu Sharingan couldn't capture any useful information. Hyojin maintained the coldness of the leader of Amatsukami and said indifferently, "Stop struggling, dig out your Sharingan yourself, and I can consider sparing your life." Shocked and angry, Uchiha Hideki roared, "Dream on!" At this time, Hyojin's gaze under the mask had already turned to the direction of the training field behind Uchiha Hideki, because in the vision of his Tenseigan, he saw a small figure rushing towards him. After seeing the face of the small figure, Hyojin was slightly taken aback, and thought to himself, "Sasuke? It can't be such a coincidence." At this moment, Sasuke, who is less than 4 years old, was looking up at the gradually dissipating flare signal in the sky while running in the direction of the flare signal. Today, he had an appointment with his brother Itachi Uchiha to practice shuriken throwing together in the training field, but the appointed time has long passed, and his brother Itachi Uchiha still hasn't shown up, which made him depressed. Just as he was considering whether to go home or not, the flare not far away caught his attention. As the second son of the Uchiha clan patriarch Fuyue, although Sasuke didn't go to the battlefield at the age of 4 like his brother Itachi, he is not an ignorant child, so he knows very well what a flare signal means. He knows that with his strength, he shouldn't be close to the area where the flare is fired. But Kuroda, who is at the age where his curiosity is the most exuberant, couldn't hold back the curiosity in his heart. Thinking about it, this is Konoha village, the head of the 5 great shinobi villages, and this area is close to the Uchiha clan's territory, so Kuroda, who hasn't experienced the cruel baptism of war, finally came here out of curiosity. Swish, the inexperienced Sasuke didn't control his pace well, and suddenly rushed out of the bushes and rushed into the battlefield. Seeing that the first to arrive was actually a child, Uchiha Hideki frowned, but when he saw the child's appearance, he suddenly exclaimed, "Sasuke, run!" Jishuei was also shocked, just like Uchiha Hideki. He also didn't expect that the first person to arrive would be the second son of the Uchiha clan patriarch Fuyue Uchiha Sasuke. As long as the witness is Uchiha clan, it is fine, whether or not it is Sasuke was not important, so Hyojin hurriedly said to Jishuei, "Do it!" Jishuei nodded, his body flashed, and in a flash, he appeared in front of Uchiha Hideki, the 3 Sharingan in his eye sockets spinning rapidly. Uchiha Hideki's eyes instantly froze, and he was instantly caught in the illusion. Thump! With a dull thud, Uchiha Hideki fell to the ground. At this time, Hyojin, who was wearing a devil mask, slowly walked towards Sasuke, who was already scared stiff. Under the pressure of Hyojin's aura, Sasuke fell to the ground, and as he retreated, he said in a trembling voice, "You don't come over." Chapter 205. Sasuke was really scared out of his wits when the jonin of his clan couldn't even withstand a single blow from the mysterious man. Looking at the mysterious man who was walking towards him step by step, he began to fall into a trance. It was as if the mysterious man wasn't wearing a mask with the image of a hungry ghost on his face, but a hungry ghost from the underworld himself. Hyojin didn't stop and walked to Sasuke in a few steps. Sasuke, who fell to the ground, stumbled backward and said, "You! What are you doing?" Holding Sasuke's little face, Hyojin looked at his black eyes and said coldly, "You haven't even awakened the Sharingan of Ichigo Magatama?" It seems that you are a useless piece of trash. Sasuke's face suddenly turned red, and he tried to break free from Hyojin's hand, but his struggle was like a tickle to Hyojin. Jisue also looked at Sasuke, and his face under the mask was full of worry. Although he knew that Hyojin wouldn't really hurt Sasuke, he was still a little worried that the young Sasuke wouldn't be able to accept the scene in front of him. After all, Sasuke's clan had never experienced cruelty and death. At this time, Hyojin pulled Sasuke up, lifted him in the air, and said disdainfully and calmly, "A piece of trash like you is not even qualified to die in my hands." After saying that, Hyojin punched Sasuke in the stomach and threw him aside. Blurg Sasuke, who was punched, knelt on the ground and retched. Naturally, Hyojin didn't use much strength in the punch just now, but even so, his light punch was enough to make the young Sasuke suffer. The main reason Hyojin did this was to maintain the public image of Amatsukami as a bounty ninja. Otherwise, letting a member of the Uchiha clan go for no reason will inevitably cause the Uchiha clan and even the entire village to be suspicious. After all, killing people to ensure that there are no witnesses is a compulsory course for any ninja. In addition, Hyojin also wanted to give Sasuke some pressure in advance. For Hyojin, Naruto and Sasuke were his last insurance. Hyojin was full of confidence in himself, but this didn't mean that he would be blindly confident and look down on everyone. Therefore, it was necessary to arrange a layer of insurance for him, who was cautious by nature. Once he went too far, Naruto and Sasuke's roles would be revealed. At the very least, they wouldn't completely ruin the situation. After all, the enemies weren't limited to the shinobi world, there were also the Otsutsuki from outer space who could descend at any time. Suddenly, in the vision of Hyojin's Tenseigan, a lot of chakra reactions appeared. Noticing that a large number of ninjas were rushing towards him, Kuroto immediately moved towards the fainted Uchiha Hideki and lifted Uchiha Hideki while whispering to Jisue, "Follow the plan." Shursui worriedly looked at Sasuke, who was on the ground in pain, and immediately nodded. In the Uchiha clan's land, Itachi, who had just finished his mission, was walking towards the training ground that Sasuke had agreed on. Itachi smiled when he thought that his brother, Sasuke, might be bored waiting for him in the training ground at this moment. If there was anything that could make Itachi feel happy and warm, it would be his younger brother Sasuke's love and dependence on him. That kind of feeling made him indulge in it. Boom! Suddenly, from the direction of the training ground, a signal flare was raised. Itachi immediately looked up, and his pupils shrank because he recognized this signal flare. It was the signal flare issued by the Uchiha clan's police force for help. Sasuke. Itachi's mind flashed with the image of Sasuke's young figure. So he almost didn't think, his figure flashed, and he used the body flicker technique to rush towards the direction of the signal flare. Just like Itachi, many Uchiha clansmen who discovered the signal flare rushed towards the direction of the signal flare, so they quickly gathered together and formed a large crowd. Not only that, many my ninjas nearby also rushed towards the direction of the signal flare with doubts. As far as everyone knew, the signal flare was usually fired on the battlefield or in the wild. It was rare for a signal flare to be fired in the village, except for a few times such as the Nine Tails Rebellion. Not long after, a large number of ninjas arrived at the place where Uchiha Hideki was attacked. What they saw was not a fierce battle, nor was there any suspicious person, only a child kneeling on the ground and retching non-stop. Anon, Uchiha clan my ninja stepped forward and asked, "Child, did you fire the signal flare just now?" Because there were no traces of battle around, he subconsciously thought that the child in front of him had accidentally touched the signal flare and fired it. At this time, Itachi also rushed over. His eyes quickly swept over Sasuke's body. After confirming that there were no obvious injuries on Sasuke's body, he walked towards Sasuke while vigilantly observing the surroundings. Swoosh, 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 amidst the sound of wind breaking, more and more ninjas arrived at the scene. Everyone's eyes were on Sasuke. Itachi squatted beside Sasuke and asked gently, "What happened just now, Sasuke? Brother?" Seeing Itachi, Sasuke immediately rushed to him. The tears that he had been suppressing couldn't help but pour out. Itachi gently comforted Sasuke. All right. What happened here? What was with the signal flare just now?" Sasuke, who had recovered from his shock, said with tears and snot, "There were two strange people who attacked Uncle Hideki here. They were very strong. They defeated Uncle Hideki in one blow, and punched me hard." "What?" The Uchiha clansmen on the side were shocked. At first, the Uchiha clan members, like the Mai ninja who had arrived first, thought that the young Sasuke had accidentally triggered the signal flare, so they didn't pay much attention to it. But now that they heard that Hideki Uchiha was attacked, they finally realized the severity of the situation. Itachi wasn't too surprised, or perhaps he hid his surprise very well. He calmly asked, "Sasuke, did you see who attacked Uncle Hideki?" Sasuke had a deep impression of Hyojin and Jishuei from Amatsukami, so he immediately answered. Both of them were wearing black cloaks and strange masks. Black cloaks? Masks? Itachi's face darkened as he vaguely guessed their identity. He then asked softly, "Do you remember the patterns on the masks?" Sasuke nodded. One was a frightening hungry ghost pattern, and the other was a flame pattern. The one who defeated Uncle Hideki was the one wearing the flame pattern mask. Suddenly, a voice came from the tree. "It's Amatsukami!" Everyone turned around and saw the leader of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fuyue, standing on the tree with a gloomy face. Chapter 206. It's the Patriarch. Patriarch. The Patriarch is here. As soon as Fugaku appeared, the Uchiha clansmen immediately felt a sense of relief, especially those who have fought against Amatsukami before and know how terrifying Amatsukami is. All of them felt a lot more at ease. Fugaku, who saw the bewildered expressions of the clansmen, slowly descended from the tree and walked into the field with a gloomy face. Sasuke stood up with his hands on his stomach and mumbled, "Father." Looking at the tears on Sasuke's face, Fuyue's face became even gloomier. Needless to say, Sasuke's performance had disappointed him. Crying was never an emotion a ninja should have, let alone the proud Uchiha clan. Shifting his gaze to Itachi, Fuyue's face softened a little. Itachi's performance satisfied him. Under his secret observation, he noticed that Itachi had been calm and vigilant from the beginning to the end, and he had been asking Sasuke all the key questions with a clear mind. As expected of my son. After sighing in his heart, Fuyue frowned and said to Sasuke, "Wipe your tears." Sasuke quickly wiped his tears, but he could not hide the grievance on his face. Fugaku ordered coldly, "Tell me everything you've seen and heard, word for word." Sasuke, who wanted to show off in front of his father, quickly told everything he saw and heard in detail. Listening to Sasuke's narration, Fuyue thought, the one wearing the flame mask and attacking Hideshu should be Fire Demon of Amatsukami. The one wearing the devil mask beside him fits the description of the leader of Amatsukami, Yama. Fuyue sized up Sasuke again and asked, "Why didn't they attack you?" Sasuke puckered his lips and said, "The man wearing the grimace mask punched me." Fuyue was unmoved. Instead, he stared coldly at Sasuke. Being stared at by his father like this, Sasuke could only lower his head and said reluctantly, That person wearing the mask said that I haven't awakened the Sharingan, and I don't even have the right to die in his hands." Fugaku's gaze deepened. "Are they here for the Sharingan? Then, is it just a coincidence that they intercepted Hideki here? Or was it premeditated?" Swish, 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 the sound of wind breaking sounded from time to time, and my ninjas rushed over one after another. Even the Umbu was alarmed. Jishuei, who had already changed her attire, took a detour outside and mixed in with the crowd as a member of the Uchiha clan. At this time, Uchiha Ryota also rushed over. Hearing that his brother Uchiha Hideki was attacked, Ryota was shocked and angry, and hurriedly said to Fuyue, "Patriarch, quickly arrange for people to rescue Hideki." Fuyue glanced at everyone and ordered, "Jisue, Ryota, and the first squad of the police force, follow me to chase the enemy and rescue Hideki. Itachi, report the situation here to Naruto-sama and ask for reinforcements from the village." In the face of Homusubi, who possesses the Manjikyu Sharingan, and Yama, the leader of Amatsukami who can suppress Homusubi, even if Shursui and the elites of the police force are gathered here, Fugaku still doesn't have full confidence. After all, Amatsukami still has Suijin and other members of the organization, so even someone as arrogant as Fuyue has no choice but to ask for help from the three generations. Hearing that the Patriarch is going to ask for help from the three generations, the Uchiha clansmen frowned. But when they think about how terrifying Amatsukami is, they have to admit that Fuyue's arrangement is the safest. Anyway, before the rebellion starts, the Uchiha clan is also a member of the Mai village. Hyojin's secret prison. Uchiha Hideki slowly opened his eyes, and immediately, he found that he was tied to a stone pillar, and he couldn't even muster the slightest bit of strength in his body. At this time, a figure walked out from a dark corner and said to himself, "He woke up so quickly? Is it because of his physique? Or is the dosage of anesthetic not enough?" Uchiha Hideki angrily stared at the figure in front of him and roared, "What do you want?" This figure is naturally Hyojin. He looked at Uchiha Hideki from head to toe and said lightly, "I am very interested in the Sharingan of your Uchiha clan. I hope you can cooperate with me to do some small experiments." "Humph, another ignorant fool who covets the power of our Sharingan." Snorting lightly, Uchiha Hideki continued to roar, "You don't understand what you have provoked. The Uchiha clan will not let you go, just wait for us to skin you alive." Saying so, Uchiha Hideki struggled with all his might, and the pupils in his eye sockets changed from black to blood red. Hyojin Hideki, who has been trying to provoke Uchiha Hideki, smiled and said, "You seem very angry." Uchiha Hideki roared, "What the hell did you do to me? Why can't I use the slightest bit of strength?" Hyojin Hideki said in a casual tone, "Nothing much, I just injected you with a little anesthetic. It is worth mentioning that your body's resistance to the anesthetic is higher than I expected. I thought you would be unable to move at this time." Uchiha Hideki stopped struggling and asked while gasping for breath, "You want my Sharingan, why don't you do it?" Hyojin Hideki was about to answer, but the three tomo in Uchiha Hideki's Sharingan started to spin rapidly, and in an instant, he felt a strange chakra coming towards him, and the Tenseigan in his eye sockets immediately burst out with a bright light. Did it work? Staring at Hyojin Hideki, Uchiha Hideki's heart almost jumped out of his throat. Hyojin Hideki glanced at Uchiha Hideki, who was full of expectation, and said with a light smile, "Not bad genjutsu, unfortunately, it doesn't work on me." Uchiha Hideki's eyes widened and he murmured, "How can this be? How can you resist my Sharingan genjutsu?" "The Sharingan isn't invincible, why can't I resist it?" Hyojin smiled and said, "When you awaken your Manjikyu Sharingan, you can try again, maybe it will work." After the initial rage, Uchiha Hideki gradually calmed down. "If I awaken my Manjikyu Sharingan, the first person I will kill is you. I look forward to that day," Hyojin Hideki said, and then slowly stepped forward and started to make hand seals. Uchiha Hideki frowned. "What are you going to do now?" After finishing the hand seals, Hyojin Hideki pressed his hand on Uchiha Hideki's chest and shouted, "Four symbols seal, seal." Instantly, a series of four symbols seal was imprinted on Uchiha Hideki's chest and spread to the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, Uchiha Hideki's body was covered with four symbols seal. Feeling that his chakra was completely sealed, Uchiha Hideki was shocked. "Why do you know the four symbols seal?" Chapter 207. It is impossible to control a jonin for a long period of time just by relying on drugs. What's more, Uchiha Hideki's physique is a bit special. He has a high resistance to anesthetics and paralysis, so he must be sealed to ensure that nothing goes wrong. And the four symbols seal is not only the most suitable seal to seal chakra, it is also the seal that Hyojin is most proficient in. As long as the four symbols seal is applied on Uchiha Hideki to seal his chakra, coupled with the effect of the four symbols potion, then the possibility of Uchiha Hideki escaping will be cut off. After checking the four symbols seal again and confirming that there are no mistakes, Hyojin once again started to make hand seals. Uchiha Hideki, who is unable to maintain his Sharingan due to chakra being sealed, was startled and scared. What else do you want to do? Hyojin still didn't answer. He once again pressed his hand on Uchiha Hideki's chest and shouted in a low voice, "Contract seal, seal." Instantly, a contract seal appeared on Uchiha Hideki's chest, instantly cutting off all connection between him and the outside world. In the shinobi world, there are many different ways to summon spirit. Apart from the most common summoning spirit summoning, there was also the communication spirit summoning and reverse spirit summoning. That spirit summoning could be used by spirit summoning beasts. There was also the human spirit summoning that ninjas could be used by spirit summoning beasts on ninjas. Therefore, if Uchiha Hideki's summoned spirit beast has the ability to use reverse summoning, then after learning that Uchiha Hideki has been kidnapped, it can easily use reverse summoning to rescue Uchiha Hideki. This is also the reason why Hyojin used the contract seal on Uchiha Hideki. However, summoning spirit beasts that can use reverse summoning are rare, and Hyojin feels that Uchiha Hideki's summoned spirit beast doesn't have this ability. However, it is better to be safe than sorry. Consuming some chakra can completely eliminate this hidden danger, and for Hyojin, it is very worth it. Looking at the contract seal on his chest, Uchiha Hideki's face stiffened, and he said in shock, "You even know contract seal?" Contract seal is the same as a four symbols seal. It is a sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan. With the extinction of the Uzumaki clan, only a few Uzumaki clansmen, including Kushina, who was brought to Konoha from a young age, were able to use these sealing techniques. Therefore, these Uzumaki Fuinjutsu became the unique Fuinjutsu of Konoha village and were recorded in Konoha's ninjutsu library. After completing the seal, Hyojin clapped his hands and said, "What's so strange about this?" Uchiha Hideki stared at Hyojin and asked, "Are you from the village?" Without a doubt, Uchiha Hideki was suspicious of Hyojin's identity. Feeling Uchiha Hideki's fluctuating emotions, Hyojin was startled at first, but he quickly understood and grinned. "You noticed it so quickly?" As expected of an elite of the Uchiha clan. Seeing that Hyojin didn't deny it, Uchiha Hideki was enraged. "Who ordered you to do this? 3 generations? Or Danzo?" At this time, in the vision of Hyojin's Tenseigan, the chakra in Uchiha Hideki's body was affected by his emotions, and suddenly became restless. Even the four symbols seal couldn't completely suppress the chakra's reaction. It seems like I can use this method to anger him." Thinking of this, Kuroto smiled and said, "Is it really that important to know who ordered it?" Uchiha Hideki seemed to be very concerned about this matter, and he gritted his teeth and said, "It's that damned old guy Danzo, right? He's been harboring evil intentions towards the Uchiha clan for a long time." Hyojin shrugged and didn't answer directly. Uchiha Hideki was taken aback, and asked with uncertainty, Could it be that 3 generations ordered it? Hyojin had already found a way to anger Uchiha Hideki, and he deliberately changed the topic. "Look, this place is very spacious, and can accommodate many people. You won't be lonely. You despicable bastards. This is all a plot against our Uchiha clan. That hypocrite 3 generations is really going to make the first move. Hyojin Hideki changed the topic, and Uchiha Hideki was sure that 3 generations was behind all this. And so, the cave was soon filled with his angry roars. Hyojin didn't stop Uchiha Hideki's roars, and instead, he used his Tenseigan to observe the chakra flow in Uchiha Hideki's body. Without a doubt, the furious Uchiha Hideki had successfully condensed chakra under the 4-symbol seal, and there was a clear chakra reaction in his body. Not enough, this is far from enough. After thinking to himself, Hyojin thought for a while, and asked Uchiha Hideki, "Oh right, I remember that you have a younger brother, right? His name is Ryota?" Uchiha Hideki glared at Hyojin, and roared as if he wanted to eat him alive, "I dare you to touch him." Hyojin rubbed his chin, and said to himself, "If I use you as bait, he should be easily fooled. Let's do that." Hearing that Hyojin wanted to use him as bait to plot against his younger brother, Uchiha Hideki suddenly activated his Sharingan again. Hyojin was slightly taken aback and thought to himself, he can actually activate his Sharingan under the suppression of the 4-symbol seal? After observing for a while, Hyojin discovered that Uchiha Hideki maintained his Sharingan for a while, but due to the lack of chakra, he exited the Sharingan state again. Shaking his head, Hyojin felt a little regretful and thought to himself, it seems that pure anger is not enough to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan, maybe I have to try other methods. My village. After gathering all the people, Fuyue didn't delay and immediately led everyone over the wall. But after chasing for a while, Fuyue frowned and stopped. Not only him, but the Uchiha elites also frowned and looked around blankly. When they just crossed the wall, there were still obvious traces, but after chasing for 7 or 8 miles, the traces suddenly disappeared without a trace. One of the Uchiha clansmen asked in confusion, "How did the traces disappear completely?" Uchiha Ryota, who had an anxious look on his face, snorted coldly and said, "Could it be that he can fly? Let's split up and search, we will definitely find the traces." Fuyue's face sank. He heard that Suijin of Amatsukami can fly in the air with the help of ice release, so he suspected that the other party may have really flown away. Otherwise, there is no other explanation as to why the traces suddenly disappeared. One must know that the Uchiha clan with the Sharingan is second only to the Hyuga clan with the Byakugan, as well as the 2 secret technique clans of Inuzuka and Oil Girl in terms of tracking. For a large group of Uchiha elites to be unable to find the slightest trace, there is only one possibility, that is, there is no trace at all. Chapter 208. The Uchiha elites, who had split up to search for traces, quickly gathered together again. They couldn't help but look at each other, not knowing what to do. No matter how carefully they searched, they couldn't find a single trace. The trail that led to this place came to an abrupt end. Out of everyone present, the most anxious one was none other than Hideo Uchiha's brother, Uchiha Ryota. He was usually calm, but now he was like a headless chicken, running around aimlessly, trying to find a clue that didn't exist in the first place. Fuyue's face darkened. Retreat. Return to the village. Uchiha Ryota couldn't care less about Fuyue's dignity as the clan leader. He stepped forward and asked, "Clan leader, are you going to give up on Hideo?" Fuyue shook his head. He didn't get angry. Instead, he patiently explained, "Without any clues, there's no point in chasing blindly. You should understand this." In fact, Fuyue still had another worry that he didn't say aloud. The fact that Amatsukami kept attacking in the village meant that even if there weren't any official members of Amatsukami hiding in the village, there must be some spies from Amatsukami. Now that all the Uchiha clan elites had left the village, if Amatsukami turned around and attacked the Uchiha clan again, the consequences would be unimaginable. Uchiha Ryota obviously didn't notice Fuyue's worry. He begged, "Clan leader, let's expand the search area. we'll definitely find some clues. Fuyue put on a serious face and said, "This is too strange. We need to be more cautious. Everyone, return to the village. This is an order." Uchiha Ryota still wanted to argue, but Fuyue gave Jishue a look. Jishue nodded and took advantage of Ryota's distraction to control him with an illusion. After handing the fainted Liang Tai to a clansman, Fuyue swept a glance at everyone and ordered, "Return to the village." Shursui secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he knew that Kuroda would not leave any clues behind, he was still a little worried about the whole process of tracking Kuroda. However, his worries were unfounded. In the Tenseigan chakra mode, Hyojin's flying speed is extremely fast. While Uchiha's elites are still gathering in the village, Hyojin has already safely arrived at the secret prison with Uchiha Hideki. In the secret prison, after injecting Uchiha Hideki with a large dose of anesthesia, Hyojin went to the study. From the bookshelf, he took down a notebook with the words, "Uchiha Hideki," written on the cover and opened it on the table. Recalling the scene just now, Kuroda slowly wrote in the notebook, "Uchiha Hideki has a strong resistance to drugs, the reason is unknown, but it is suspected that it is related to his Sharingan." After pondering for a while, Hyojin continued writing. His Sharingan seems to have a special ability to resist drugs and seals. The specific situation requires further in-depth research and investigation. Turning to another page, Hyojin started writing under the page marked, "Manjikyu Sharingan Project." In the anger test, the chakra in Uchiha Hideki's body reacted strongly, and his Sharingan power also improved, but there is still a long way to go before he can awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. Hypothesis 1. Anger is not the best emotion for Uchiha Hideki to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. Hypothesis 2. During the test, the degree of anger is not enough to support his Manjikyu Sharingan awakening. Writing until here, Hyojin slightly stopped writing. If a member of the Uchiha clan wants to awaken their Manjikyu Sharingan, they must be stimulated by extreme emotions. In fact, there are many kinds of extreme emotions, such as despair, sadness, anger, and so on. Based on the analysis of all the successful cases of awakening Manjikyu Sharingan that Hyojin has learned so far, the probability of awakening Manjikyu Sharingan is the highest when they are stimulated by the extreme emotion of despair. For example, Uchiha Obsidian, Uchiha Shinichi, and Itachi Uchiha, who witnessed Jishue's suicide and felt despair for his clan. All of them were stimulated by the extreme emotion of despair and successfully awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Among them, Obito even skipped the crucial stage of 3-hook Sharingan and directly evolved from 2-hook Sharingan to Manjikyu Sharingan to Manjikyu. From this, it can be seen that the extreme emotion of despair has a significant effect on the Uchiha clan. It's just that it's not easy to create such an extreme emotion of despair. Obsidian himself is a special case, so I won't discuss it. Shinichi's despair is obviously created by the joint efforts of Obsidian, Uchiha clan, and my clan. No matter which party is missing, Shinichi will not fall into despair and awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. Itachi's despair was triggered by Shursui, who was both his teacher and friend, at the cost of committing suicide. In addition to despair, sadness is also a powerful weapon to stimulate the awakening of Manjikyu Sharingan in the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Jishue and Uchiha Fu all awakened their Manjikyu Sharingan in great sadness, because their friend died in the war. As for anger, it seems that no Uchiha clan has awakened their Manjikyu Sharingan completely because of the extreme emotion of anger. The only one related to anger, as far as Hyojin knows, is Uchiha Sasuke. However, Uchiha Sasuke's awakening of Manjikyu Sharingan, in addition to anger, is more of sadness for his brother Itachi Uchiha's tragic life. Therefore, the extreme emotion that stimulated Uchiha Sasuke to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan should be the sum of sadness and anger. After thinking for a long time, Hyojin turned another page in his notebook and wrote the word sadness at the top of the page. For Hyojin, the creation of an extreme emotion such as sadness is relatively easy. After all, Uchiha Hideki has many relatives in the Uchiha clan, and there are many fetters that Hyojin can use. Among them, his younger brother Ryota, the backbone of the Uchiha clan's radical faction. Uchiha is the best choice. In addition, if some anger is added to the extreme emotion of sadness, it may have a decisive effect. After all, there is an example like Sasuke. Therefore, Hyojin's next plan is to use the extreme emotion of sadness to stimulate Uchiha Hideki. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.